What's happening? We are back at it for another late night episode of Blunt Politics. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about. You'd be like, well, you just had a show earlier today. You probably don't have a ton you could talk about, but yes, we do. KKK, Karoline propagandist gaslighter is out at the end of the month. And I want to get your take in the chat on why you think this might be happening now. I know the excuse is out there, and it's known that she just had a recent child, kind of using that as an excuse, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem to add up at this point in time. She's had kids. She knows what this job entails. She's been the chief propagandist and the chief gaslighter for this administration. Credit where credit is due for horrible people. She's done a fantastic job of pushing the bullshit of this administration. I think it's going to be a hard spot to fill, a hard role to fill. What do you guys think? I'm curious what you guys think in the chat. Once again, thank you guys for taking time out of your night. Appreciate you for being here. Please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that alert bell, all the things that help beat the algorithm for independent channels like this that don't necessarily get the push that they deserve, in my opinion. You know what I mean? You guys let me know what you guys think. But Lady Muddy Feet, what's happening? What's up, Luck Dragon? Susie, how goes it? Roxanne, how are you? You still celebrating the birthday? We still sober? What's going on? Let me know. Sammy, how are you? What's up, Debbie Zircon? What's going on? Bald Thanos? What's happening? Oh, come on, Brian. We know we have nobody like Karoline to laugh at. But I think, like I said, I think it's going to be a tough spot for this administration to fill. I think if you'll recall when she was on her, her administrative leave for having a baby, they basically didn't have anybody to fill her role. They didn't have anybody to fill her shoes. I think they kind of did like the round robin, if I'm remembering correctly, where like Scott Bessent did it a couple days and Marco Rubio did it a couple days and Pete Hegseth, like they all kind of jumped around and shared, that position. So I don't know who they're grooming. I don't know if Karoline Leavitt has somebody under her wings that for the next, however many days are left in this month, actually, have the opportunity to groom to do this. Like, it's a very difficult job, you have to understand, for anyone doing this for the Trump administration to try to go out there and lie through their teeth with shit that they know is absolutely not correct and do it with confidence, and to be able to, brush aside any of the relevant questions that come with any of the bullshit. I don't know. It's going to be, I'm curious what you guys think. You think there's something else going on behind the scenes? I don't know if Natalie Hop, Thanos, I see what you're saying, and I know that's a name being thrown out there, but I think she's too, like, she's got like her lane, I think. She's got her position. I don't think that she'd really like that, if she were to become press secretary, it would take her away from Donald Trump a lot. Like, she wouldn't be able to spend as much time wiping his ass and cleaning his balls. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think she'd necessarily care for that too much. So we'll see. We'll see. I don't know if there's been names floated out there by Republicans or KKK Karoline herself, but I just don't think it's going to be as easy as people are suspecting it to be for this administration, especially going into midterms when messaging, lies, bullshit, gaslighting, propaganda is going to be, the way of the world for the Republicans to try to get ahead in any way, shape, or form. I don't know. It seems to be a strange timing, really strange timing, especially as we haven't seen any resolution to the Iran war. She's been the one out there touting that this was going to be an easy conflict. Donald Trump knows exactly what he's doing, believe in the process. The Iranians are weak. They have no military capabilities. Like, she's been the one out there touting this and pushing this line. So I don't know. Again, it smells fishy. I know, Donald Trump put out a statement, which we'll take a look at, basically saying that she was going to have some sort of, managerial role, basically, behind the scenes, and that she'd be kind of helping out the campaign as an advisor. What that entails, I'm not really sure. I also would, raise the question, a lot of these people that are now going to leave possibly on good terms from Donald Trump's administration, if their lifestyles start changing, noticeably, if they start driving fancier cars, or if they all of a sudden start buying real estate all over the place, and they got this like padded bank account that nobody knows how they got it. It sure didn't come from the salary as the press secretary. Let's just use as an example, but a lot that we're going to be talking about. Obviously, Karoline Leavitt's resignation. We're going to be bringing up some more of the like horrendous polling numbers that Donald Trump and the Republican Party are now facing. And it's not just Donald Trump; it's also his entire cabinet and how unpopular, from Marco Rubio to Pete Hegseth to Scott Bessent, every single one of them is extremely unpopular. And Harry Enton did some comparisons to past presidents, past secretaries, to kind of show you just how unpopular they are. And then we're going to be diving into the story that a lot of people are talking about as far as the sailors on the USS Abraham Lincoln basically being pushed to their limits and over their limits, to the point now where several have attempted to jump overboard. We've talked about the horrendous living conditions. We've talked about the fire aboard the USS Gerald Ford. We've talked about the plumbing problems aboard, I believe, the USS Gerald Ford, if I'm not mistaken. I have all the videos and stuff to go through as well. I believe Aaron Parnas posted a couple text messages from some of the people on some of these ships as well. So we're going to go through all of that. The Fox News General Longface Jack Keane, he's back on Fox News. And he's basically warning that Iran is more likely to escalate and get more aggressive as they see Donald Trump and the Republicans in the United States in general getting closer to midterm elections, knowing that it's less and less likely that Donald Trump's going to, engage in a brash act that would likely lead to more deaths and casualties as far as U.S. servicemen and women, more instability as far as the markets are concerned. Obviously, the fluctuation in oil and gas prices. So Iran knows this. They know that, to a certain extent, and even with the newest reporting coming out that Donald Trump's trying to, quote unquote, low key it, and he's looking for an off ramp, and he doesn't care about the nuclear position anymore. He just wants a way out. Like, Iran's going to feed off that. They're going to see him sleeping in the Oval Office. They're going to see the reports of the vastly low levels of stockpiles, ATACMS, Tomahawks, all of this, and they're going to use this to their advantage. They continue to see ships struck in the Strait of Hormuz. We continue to see the Houthis seemingly expanding their involvement in this war in this region. So it seems like they're kind of playing the role that we're seeing in reality, and they're going to exploit that. And the long-faced general here on Fox News, who's basically threatened that escalation was the only way out of this for quite some time, is now looking at this from a whole different angle, looking at it from, the midterm perspective and, kind of, again, the handcuffing that seemingly Donald Trump is under right now because he doesn't want to, throw a fucking rock at the bee's hive any more than he already has going into midterms. So we have that clip coming out, and then we also have a couple from, like I said, the Preston Stewart video that we didn't get to earlier, talking about the, Russia's mobilizations and the fact that they're quickly running out of volunteers for this war. Jake Bro has an update on a 400 drone attack, I believe, going into Novorossiysk, or at least that's just the amount of drones. I may be misreading that. That just may be the total amount of drones, because that's a very large attack on a single target. But we have Jake Bro's updates, and I'm sure he'll clarify. And then we got one here from Denis Davidoff about the biggest Ukrainian attack in 2026. And that is right in the region that we were discussing earlier on the show, just south of Konstantinivka, a very important part of the battlefield, a very important part of the front. So I want to take a look at, what successes Ukraine's seeing in here. And I think they're even gaining territory. So it's not just, thwarting or defending against Russian attacks and doing a hell of a job doing it, but taking the fight to the Russians, taking the territory that the Russians had, quote unquote, gained in their successes. So we got a lot to talk about, lots to discuss. I want to hear a lot from the chat tonight. Again, I'm very curious what you guys think, the reasoning behind Karoline Leavitt's resignation at the end of the month, why she would pick now to leave with so much unresolved, with so much up in the air and so much importance placed upon how much propaganda and the gaslighting that this White House can get out there going into midterm elections. It's just a very strange time. And again, things just aren't adding up. She's had a kid. I don't know how old her first kid is, but she's been in this position with a child. I know having two children, I know having another child, drastically adds to the difficulty of being a parent. Absolutely. But I just think that she would be very well versed in how this would go, whether it's nannies, whether it's people under her, within her, I don't know, like her being the boss. I'm sure she has, people under her that do work and can run errands and do this type of shit. So, like, I feel like she would have it figured out how to have this life as the press secretary and be a mom too. Not saying it's easy by any stretch of the imagination, and for anybody. I don't care who the fuck you are. I don't care if you're a piece of shit. I don't care if you're a gaslighter or a propagandist whatsoever. Parenting and having a job like this, extremely difficult. So I want to make sure that I take that into account as well and recognize that. But I just feel like she would have the process down where it wouldn't be so much of a distraction and so much of a disruption to being a mom to continue to be the press secretary, at least, like I said, until, midterms, the Iran war was resolved and she could get out there and try to, turn this into a victory somehow. Like, that's going to be important as well. Like, if anything ever does come from the Strait of Hormuz, if they see some sort of opening that they're going to try to exploit as a victory, the press secretary and the propaganda that's put out there is going to be very, very important in whether or not even their own cult, even their own MAGA base, believe that they actually achieved some sort of victory in this. So again, just very fishy timing, as it were, for KKK Karoline. Again, one of the soulless, lifeless hacks, one of the most sacrilegious bitches you'll ever meet in your entire life, going out there lying through her goddamn teeth with a smile every single day, whether it's about the deaths or injuries to U.S. servicemen and women, whether it's about the economy. She just went out there the other day and said that, Donald Trump was making things less expensive and groceries and everything was on its way down. Like, who the fuck is seeing that? Anybody in the chat seeing that shit happen in your daily life? Because it sure is fucking in my daily life. Every time I go to buy anything, I don't care if it's a fucking stamp, a Snickers, a car, whatever the fuck it is, you're always like, wow, that's a lot more expensive than it was the last time I looked. Like, there's nobody in the chats that's going to be like, whoa, hey, I know this one thing that's drastically less expensive than it was, just a month ago, because it ain't out there, I can assure you. And thank you so much to Leave Me Alone, Mike. I really appreciate that. Great name in the chat. Thank you for becoming a new YouTube member. And everybody and anybody that is in the chat gifting and supporting this channel. Bicycle Mike, I see you in there. Thank you and congratulations on becoming a member now for 2 years. Let's fucking go. Much appreciated. Thank you to you guys as well. And then I think there was another one in there. Maybe not, but you guys too can gift in the chat, just like Bicycle Mike, just like Leave Me Alone Mike, which is a great fucking name. And also you could utilize the Venmo just up in the corner. If you want to send in $1 or $2 for this independent channel to keep us running, that would be fantastic. Anything above and beyond that is totally up to you and your financial capabilities. Not going to stand in your way, but just $1 or $2 sent into the Venmo or a super chat or anything like that is a great way to fight the algorithm and to make sure that this channel stays pumping. But all right, let's get into a little bit of the coverage here. I want to see what Fox News is saying as far as the resignation here from KKK Karoline. So let me throw this on the screen. We're going to see one from Fox News, and then we'll take a look at one from CNN. So I just want to see, kind of how this is being reported, if there's any speculation thrown out there as to what may or may not have happened behind the scenes. If this is, again, just genuinely her saying that I'm done with all this, I've lied enough, I've propagandized enough, I've been responsible for the death and destruction of this country enough, and I'm ready to go, become a mom and lie to my children about the job that I just did and how consequential the administration was. So this one is just really short. Again, less than 2 minutes. I don't want to dive too deeply into what Fox News says about this bullshit anyway, but I am just curious how they're reporting to their, to their viewers. And then the next one we got here is from CNN reporting the same thing. Just curious, again, any they have, from being in and around in the vicinity of Karoline Leavitt, if anything's being said on the ground. So let's dive into this first one here from Fox. Hit that like button if you could. My name's Brian. This is the Blunt Politics Podcast. Really do thank you and appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us here at Blunt Politics, to get some of the news, get some of the opinions, take some time out, spend it with the chat. Whatever you're here for, I thank you for that. So let's get into this Fox News clip. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell if you haven't already. All right, let's dive into it.
We have some breaking news for you right now. This is from President Trump on Truth Social. Our wonderful White House press secretary and one of my most trusted aides, Karoline Leavitt.
Why are they reporting it like she died? Does anybody get it? Is anybody else getting that vibe? Like Fox News is reporting the death of somebody in this administration? Like, oh my God, oh shit. Trump just posted this on Truth Social. This is horrible, folks. We're going to have to, is there somber? Can you play some somber music in the background as we play this?
Parting her role at the end of the month so that she can spend more time with her beautiful young children and family. A decision I totally understand and respect. Karoline will now be one of my top outside advisors and an influential voice within the Republican Party as we work to defy history and conclusively win the midterm elections. Karoline has been a real leader in the White House and has done a
I read that as Karoline's going to collect substantially more money now in the private sector by being an advisor rather than having an active role as being press secretary here, with an actual government salary and shit.
Phenomenal job fighting for justice, liberty, and freedom since 2018, including our historic reelection campaign, he writes, of 2024.
Right.
Karoline
so she's done more for this administration to lie, gaslight, cheat, steal, rob for this administration against the American people than anybody else that you could possibly think of. Right. And she's held this role. She's been secure in this role because of the confidence in which she tells the lies. Like, that's why she has the ability to go out there and say, I don't give a fuck how stupid I look. I don't give a fuck how much of a bitch I look like. I don't give a fuck what reality actually states. I don't give a fuck what the facts actually are. Like, I am going to do the bidding of Donald Trump. I am going to take his direct fucking talking points and rhetoric, and I'm going to filter that to you guys. And if you don't toe that line, if you don't report it the way I want, I'm just going to come back with bullshit, whataboutisms. I'm going to make fun of you. I'm going to make fun of your outlet. So a very mini-me Donald Trump like attitude, which is why I believe she's lasted as long as she has here with the Trump administration. Just her abject willingness to go out there and brutalize the truth, go out there and stomp all over reality and just spew the lies that this administration needs her to spew in order to get across their agenda and bullshit that they need to get through on a daily basis here.
Been one of the best White House press secretaries in the history of the office. Thank you, Karoline, for a job well done.
Fucking nonsense. Absolute fucking nonsense. And what metric do you even measure that by? Right? By what metric do you measure the best press, White House press secretary? How many lies they told? How much they were able to fucking fool the American people in the American press? Like, what categories do we check off here to say, okay, yep, she got a 2 in that category. Nope, give her a 10 in that category. Like, it's just a stupid thing to say. But the amount of lies that were told in just the first administration, which Karoline was a part of. I forget her specific role in the first administration, but I do know that she was involved with the with Donald Trump's first term as well. But the amount of lies that he told just in the first term, 30,000 plus, got to be doubled already in the second term. And Karoline Leavitt has been on TV in front of cameras with a microphone in her face, fucking spewing and spreading those lies every single day. So no fucking love lost here for this lying, sacrilegious piece of shit, Karoline Leavitt, and everything that she's been responsible for. But again, I do feel bad for anybody that she thinks is ready to step up into the spotlight and to take her place, because it's not going to be the same thing that we've seen with Karoline Leavitt. Like, she had the same Trump-like ability to distance herself from reality and just stay focused on the lies that she needed to tell, and not a lot of people have that. Like, even some of these idiots. What's the what was that short guy's name that was press secretary for like 32 seconds? Fuck, why can't I think of his name? The short little douchebag. What the fuck was his name? Ah, man. Spicy? Sean Spicer? Sean Spicer? Is that it? Sean Spicer? That crap. Scaramucci was one. Karen, you're right. Everybody's going Scaramucci. Shit, you guys hate Scaramucci, huh? I say one short piece of shit, and you're like, Scaramucci. Got to be Scaramucci. But wasn't it Sean Spicer, one of them as well? Spicer lasted a while? Okay. So maybe I'm mixing up the length of time that each one of them kind of served. But still, like, even as much as they are psychotic dickheads, the both of them, we'll combine both of them, the Spice and the Mooch in this one, like, they knew what they were doing was wrong, and they still, like, they let that creep into the way that they held their press conferences, right? Like, they knew if somebody got them in a gotcha question, or if somebody was making them look stupid, like, it threw them off. Like, they sounded stupid, they started stuttering. They started talking about things that had made absolutely no sense. Like, there's a reason that Mooch only lasted as long as he lasted there, because he sucked at his job. Not because he was a good guy, but because at some point in time during those press conferences, he knew he was looking like an asshole. He knew that he was lying for a piece of shit, and it just threw him off, right? It changed the way that they held the press conference. Same thing with Sean Spicer. Like he can only he can only oh my God. Remember that fucking piece of work? Holy shit. Unreal going back in time and looking at the people that have been affiliated with this administration, both in the first term and the second term. Just some of the biggest low life hacks you could possibly think of. Just the most money grubbing, grifting pieces of shit ever put on this planet are all affiliated and associated with Donald Trump and his campaign or the Republican Party somehow in some way, shape, or form. And it's fucking crazy. It really is. But it's just like even they had some semblance of reality, which didn't allow them to get the job done properly. Like you can go back and look at any of the Sean Spicer clips. Like he looks uncomfortable. He's fidgety. He doesn't have the correct answers. You go back and you look at Karoline Leavitt, like she's dead focused. Again, a piece of shit through and through, but credit where credit is due to the levels in which that she exerted herself to push this propaganda. Again, the reason in which she's lasted so long, I think you guys will probably understand, what I'm trying to say as far as that's concerned. But she's done a hell of a job at pushing this gaslighting bullshit to the public and gaslighting the cult and getting them to believe the shit. So that's why I continue to say it's still just it seems to be weird timing with all of Donald Trump's projects going on, with all of the turmoil, with all of the bad shit that they have to spin. Right? I mean, that's the only way that they get ahead is to spin reality and turn what you guys see in your daily lives with your own eyes into bullshit, into fucking, gold laminated horses that everybody should be, like that's what they have to turn that fucking turd that everybody's living through right now and somehow make it a gold plated turd. But I don't know. I just don't know that anybody's going to be able to adequately fill the void that will be leaving the White House when KKK Karoline ultimately departs. But here's the rest of this Fox News clip.
President Donald J. Trump. Karoline, obviously, Leavitt had her second child over the summer. She took a little bit of time off to be with that baby. It sounds from what the president is saying that she will still be quite involved as an advisor and as we move towards the midterms. But from what
I don't know, sounds like if she's going to be that heavily involved, she's not going to get to spend too much time with her kids. Like, what is this? She's going to what? She's going to be an advisor from the kitchen? She's going to be an advisor from the couch? I guess the Republicans would love that, right? Having her be an advisor while also barefoot in the kitchen cooking for her kids. That would be the perfect role, I believe. Ask any conservative Republican male where Karoline Leavitt should be, and they'll obviously say in the kitchen barefoot. Correct, obviously. That's going to be the first thing that they say. But let's see what else they got.
From what he says here, it sounds like not in the day-to-day White House press office briefings, which really she has become legendary in carrying out because she has...
legendarily stupid.
When she was on leave, they brought in Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, and some of the Scott Bessent, some of the.
That's what I mean. That's what I was saying. I just don't think that like they have anybody waiting in the wings that could like immediately step into those shoes and do the work that Karoline was doing. Like Marco Rubio sucked at it. Scott Bessent is a fucking atrocious in front of a camera. You know what I mean? Like who else? Like, I know you guys have been throwing around the Natalie Hobbs and whoever that, who was the robot that was standing in between Donald Trump when he was falling asleep during that anti-vax one. I don't know if I've gotten a name for her yet, but, I don't know if maybe she's waiting in the wings. I don't fucking know. Who knows? I'm sure there's somebody that they've picked out already, and I'm sure they wouldn't leave, Donald Trump empty-handed. But I forgot about Melissa McCarthy doing spicy. Yeah. That's what I mean, though. That's what I mean. Like, we've forgotten more insanity than we've actually remembered from this fucking guy in his time in politics. There's so much insanity. If you would have sit down with somebody and like really hash out and go back over like, sequentially Donald Trump's political career, like all of the fucking craziness that you would like, remember and it would stir up it would almost be too much at this point. You know what I mean? It would almost be too much, but there is so much, and it's the Steve Banification. That's what it is. They have inevitably thrown so much shit at us, so much shit at the wall. We can only block so much. So there's so much that has gotten through that we haven't been able to block that we just ultimately filter out of our minds. That if you go back, it shows you, in pretty stark light, just how corrupt and disastrous this guy has been as far as a politician in this country and, where he's led the Republican Party as a whole.
replace her because she's very strong advocate for the president in that press room. I think that's undeniable. We're going to have more for you on this.
You can tell by the bruises on her knees. But all right, let's see here what I'm curious what CNN has to report, seeing if they have any insight as to, maybe something else that Fox News isn't reporting, maybe some fights going on behind. I'm just hoping. I'm a hoping and a wishing there's something big and juicy behind the scenes going on and brewing, or if it's just, again, the fact that she can't remember her child's name anymore because of how much time she spent around Donald Trump. And of course, you can't have your kid around Donald Trump. That's another thing that she's probably dealing with. She'd probably be able to see her kids a lot more if she was able to bring her kids to the White House with trust that they weren't going to end up in fucking RFK Jr.'s boot or Donald Trump's fucking yacht or something like that. You know what I mean?
And Trump announcing just
right, but yeah, his CNN and their take on this whole thing.
Moments ago that Karoline Leavitt will be leaving her role as the White House press secretary at the end of this month. The president taking to Truth Social saying that Leavitt will now serve as one of his, quote, top outside advisors. Joining us now is CNN White House correspondent Elena Train. Elena, what more can you tell us?
Not just yet, Abby. Not just yet. We have till the end of the month, Abby says. So you're saying I don't have to listen to that low life every day now? Yeah, but be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you wish for, because as somebody else just said, forget who said it, but, Stephen Miller might be inevitably somebody that you're going to be seeing more of do this, and they could be doing the round robin, again, until they find somebody that can fill this role where, everybody takes a shot at it for a week and, until they figure out, who can lie the best behind the scenes. But yeah, just, be careful what you wish for, because you never know. I do think that Stephen Miller would not be, even for the administration, good for that role because of the ridiculous shit that he says, and obviously the violent tendencies and his bigoted, transphobic, homophobic, Islamophobic views. Like, I think even for this administration, he's a step too far for a press secretary. Like, he's good on Fox News and, Sean Hannity's broadcast and to stir shit up on social media. But, to get out there every single day in front of the American press corps, I don't know if Stephen Miller is exactly what they're looking for. I think he serves a very good purpose elsewhere other than behind. Not saying he wouldn't fill in for a day or two. Like I said, if they do the whole round robin bullshit. No, Wes says nobody wants to look at that every single day. Obviously, absolutely not. Katie Miller? Katie Miller. I don't think so. Again, I think she serves an adequate purpose on her podcast for this administration, for, Republicans in general. I think kind of she has her lane. I don't think she'd be too good at it either. Just from what I've seen of her, hosting her podcast, she doesn't seem like the brightest bulb on the tree, let's just say. You know what I mean? And you do need, as maniacal and as horrible as these people are, you do need some level of intelligence, which is also very ironic considering the levels of, or abilities, I should say, to detach yourself from reality you need at the same time for that job. Erica Kirk? No, I don't know. I think she's too stigmatized. Right? Not saying that Karoline wasn't, but Karoline was stigmatized because of this job and not before this job, I don't think, or so much. I know she was probably to a certain extent stigmatized just for being associated with the Trump administration, but I think she got most of her hate and anger that's placed upon her and towards her from this job that she has. I think Erica has way too much baggage. I think it would be just a sideshow that Donald Trump wouldn't like, that would take the focus off of Donald Trump instead of Karoline does a great job of putting the focus on Donald Trump, right? Which is another reason why she's kept her job so long. She doesn't make it about her. She's not trying to change the narrative to what she believes or make any minute changes to the story or to the bullshit that she's getting from Trump. Like, she puts Donald Trump first and foremost, and, that's what Donald Trump needs, where I don't think – who said Chris Rock? That's a strange one. Laura Loomer, no. I mean, these are like all out of left field, though. Like, I know these are, high profile-ish Republicans and conservatives and MAGA people, but these aren't people that that are close enough, I don't think, to the administration to even be thought about for this job. Again, Laura Loomer, same thing with Katie Miller. I think she's got her lane. I think they utilize her, on social media and whatnot and that bullshit. So, and again, who knows? What the fuck do I know? It could be any one of these people, but I'm just giving you my opinion on Scott Jennings. No, that's another one. I think he's too he's too beneficial where he is. You know, he's got that fucking lane of being that douchebag Republican conservative asshole MAGA cunt bag on CNN, where they don't normally, in their minds, allow too many of these people on there. So, you know, he's a regular on CNN, and I don't think they'd really want to waste that. I don't. Does Barron even speak? Yeah, he speaks just enough to call Andrew Tate and ask him how many girls he's trafficked recently. That's how much he talks. The only people he talks to is Melania and Andrew and Tristan Tate, apparently. But let me know what you guys think. If you disagree on any of these, Mike Lindell. Well, he's got the ability to do it now. You know that he lost his primary for Minnesota governor. Lindsey Halligan. Where have I heard that before? Where have I heard that before? I've heard that name before. Let me see here. Lindsey Halligan. I have heard that before. American attorney. Oh, I've seen her. What's this story? It says she's leaving somewhere. Is this recent? Lindsey Halligan leaving U.S. Attorney's Office, Bondi says. That was January 2026, though. I was going to say, if that kind of, if that lined up, if that was recent, you'd have something, you'd have something going there. You'd have a little bit of steam behind your fastball as far as evidence or, at least reasoning to suggest that she might be, in the wings, let's say. But yeah, I don't know. Who's the other one there with the SS lightning bolt tattoos on the back of her? I think she works for Lindell TV, if I'm not mistaken. Do you guys know who I'm talking about? She's got like the two, they look like lightning bolts, or they look like, let's see if I can find it. Reporter, I think it was, she's either for OAN, SS lightning bolts. Let's see here. Reporter, female reporter, maybe that'll bring it up. Female reporter. SS lightning bolt tattoo. Katie Britt. No, she's still a rep, right? Am I wrong, Croc? Katie Britt? Is she no longer? Let's see here. Oh, Jesus. You type in female reporter SS lightning bolt tattoo. First 25 things that come up. Obviously, he's going to it's grand platter. But I don't know. I think you'd recognize at least the images from this woman. She's got like on the back of one of her legs, she's got like the double lightning bolt SS tattoo. And I believe she works for Lindell TV or OAN or something along those lines. Janine Pirro, yeah. Janine Pirro. Yeah, Senator, correct. Sorry, Senator, not rep. Mike, yep, thank you, Soulcraft. Thank you, guys. Corrected me on that one. No, see, this is what I'm talking about, guys, right? Like, I just don't know who they have in the wings. Like, I don't even, is there anybody that, like, that Karoline Leavitt is, like, reportedly spotted with all the time? Let's do Karoline Leavitt. Let's do aide, maybe? Karoline Leavitt exiting as White House press secretary will serve outside as Trump. I don't see anything about any, like, person waiting in the wings, though. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this is who, has been frequently pictured or seen with Karoline Leavitt during her job as White House press secretary. So here's the person that we're likely to suspect could be taking the position, who served as Trump's aide during his first administration. See, like, I'm typing in Karoline Leavitt aide or known associate or, like, lady waiting in the wings or something, and I'm not getting anything. I'm just not getting anything. But, all right, jumping back into it, let's see what CNN has to say about it. Like I said, curious if they have any other insight that we may have missed.
Tell us.
Yeah, look, I think this came as a surprise to many people, Pamela, and that's partly because this role, particularly under President Donald Trump, had been a tough one to fill. I'd remind you that Leavitt is one of the closest.
Well,
advisors.
Somebody just said, Philly 3000 said Sarah Huckabee in the chat, right? And along those lines, a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of Republicans, a lot of these maggots on Twitter are suspecting, or at least throwing it out there, putting it in the zeitgeist about Kayleigh McEnany possibly making a return, which is, I think, probably, I don't know what her family situation looks like. I don't know what her contract looks like with Fox News. I don't know what her willingness would be. I know her and Donald Trump, she's back on the Trump train. Not that she was ever off the Trump train, but her and Trump were kind of on shaky ground there for a while. I forget the explicit insults hurled Kayleigh McEnany's way by Donald Trump, but I do know that there was a few. But that's what I've seen. And kind of that makes the most sense. Somebody that knows the administration, has been in this position before, kind of knows the inner workings, knows how Donald Trump operates, what he likes, what he doesn't like as far as at least press secretary is concerned. So I don't know. Gary Busey. Gary Busey. Oh, I wish I was proficient at AI. I really was. I wish I had one of these huge computers as far as capacity was concerned, and I could just have all of these AI platforms, and I could right now put into that AI platform, can you please create Gary Busey as Karoline Leavitt as Donald Trump's White House press secretary? And I would watch that all fucking night. You shitting me? Do you know how fucking entertaining that would be? Oh shit, Mike. You killed me with that one. Fucking right. I just think of Gary Busey every time is it Tommy Boy or Black Sheep? I always get them mixed up. Where he plays Drake Savage. I mean, that could be true. That could be true as a possible replacement for Karoline Leavitt. Maybe Jeffrey Epstein's going to come out of hiding. He's always willing to help his buddies out in a time of need. Justice, I see what you guys are saying as far as this. I do see what you're saying, but I don't think, I just think she has her specific role. You know what I mean? I don't know if talking is her thing. You know what I mean? Like I've never seen her in a talking role. I've never seen her be given any hey, go out there and spew this line to the press corps or whatever. I don't think that's necessarily what she's good at. She's good at, admiration and smiling and, like I said, wiping assholes and throwing away dirty diapers and shit like that and keeping her mouth shut. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, she's got a role where she needs to keep her mouth shut. Press secretary got the opposite shit. Like, she gotta keep her yap open at all times and just make sure that it's, bullshit and nice things about Donald Trump at the whole time. Natalie Hopp is there specifically to keep her trap shut, But not saying you're wrong. I'm just, like I said, just giving my opinions on some of the, the options that you guys are throwing out. Because I'm curious myself. I think it's a very strange timing with nobody that we could possibly think of right now that makes sense or is readily available type of thing. Barron doesn't speak. That's Clever Dale says Alina Habba. I don't know what Alina Habba is doing nowadays. But that, these names are people like that are, closely associated at one point in time. So kind of make more sense than somebody on the outside, on the outskirts. Stephen Chung. Oh my God. What a disaster that would be. Imagine seeing fucking Stephen Chung's fat face every day out there. That would be fucking terrible. Terrible. No, bless you, Leron. Bless you. No, she makes way too much money doing her own thing, right? I don't think she'd give that up. She makes way too much money sucking in idiots into her YouTube channel and other things, other ventures. Rob Schneider, that again, I don't know. Are they going to go for a male or a female? That's like the first question, right? You would assume female, but you never know. Meghan McCain, Herschel Walker. Wow, these are names you haven't heard in a while. Sidney Powell. Stephen Chung. Yeah, like I said, I just think these people have their lane in what they're good at so far. Doesn't mean, like I said, just because it doesn't make sense, like Hal says, just because it doesn't make sense doesn't mean that's not what they're going to try to do. I'm just saying, as far as, my thought process is concerned, what these people are currently doing, what their relationship with the administration has been like in the past. It just, I don't know if it lines up yet. But obviously it's got to be somebody. So, you'll never know. Thank you, Independent. Much appreciated. Thank you, Brian. Slava Ukraine. Heroyam Slava. Right back at you, Independent. Much appreciated for being a member for 27 months. It's been great and will continue to be great to have you here as a part of this community. So thank you very much. All right, let's get on with this CNN clip. See what else they got to say as far as insights here.
The president did say this in his post, but she is one of the closest advisors that he has. She's part of that very small group of really loyal people who have been with the president on the 2024 campaign trail. She also worked for him, I should note, during his first term when he was first in office, and has continued to be one of those people that goes in to very sensitive meetings, is one of few people that actually knows what is going on at high levels in the West Wing. So it's a loss for the president. I'd also note the timing of this, which I think is pretty crucial. The White House is losing their chief messenger just 3 months before the midterm election.
That's what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. Like, this is a bad thing for the Trump administration. This is not in any way something they should be celebrating, which is why I think you kind of got that initial that initial sentiment, that initial vibe from the Fox News clip of like, oh shit, like, oh man, we're gonna figure something out here. You know what I mean? It just, I think this is strange, odd timing for the Trump administration. I don't think that anybody's going to be adequately, and immediately ready to fill this void, to fill this position. And I think it's a very important time right now for Republicans as a whole. Donald Trump may not give a shit about his poll numbers, about, what people are saying about his administration, about what people are saying about Republicans, how they're going to vote in midterms. I don't think Donald Trump gives a fuck. He specifically stated so. It has nothing to do with him. He's served out his last term. He's talked about it 100 times. He's seen, his fucking, his final days on this earth finally come into view. Like, he doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't give a shit. But the rest of the people, like, this is a very important time for them to, again, try to mitigate some of the damages, try to obfuscate from some of the very damaging circumstances that Donald Trump has gotten us into. Like, this is a very important time for them to have the press secretary firing at all cylinders, getting their propaganda, getting their rhetoric, getting their bullshit out there to the American people just before midterms, as we have a war going on, as the economy is shit, as people continue to be struggling, as healthcare is ripped from people, as food stamps are ripped from people. Like, your ability to message and at least keep a hold of that 25 to 30% is very related to how well your press secretary goes out there and handles themselves, because it can be very disastrous, as we've seen, if you have a press secretary that kind of folds and buckles, as we've seen many times from some of the secretaries that Donald Trump's gone through. What happens if they don't do a good job? They're on the next fucking ship out.
Now, as for the reasoning for her departure, both the president and Leavitt, who did post her own lengthy statement on social media, said it was because of her family. She did give birth recently to a daughter. She gave birth to her on May 1st. She only took about a month of maternity leave before returning. And I'll tell you, I have been speaking with some of my sources. When she was on maternity leave, the president, even then, was still frequently calling her and at times was asking when she was going to come back. So I think that just highlights the demanding role.
Yeah, he's missing their little late night talk sessions, the little late night talk sessions that they had. He really missed those.
Of press secretary for her to juggle with her 2 young children. She did
confirm. Who fucking said Roseanne Barr? Don't even speak that into existence. You delete that message right now. I don't know where it went, but you fucking delete that right now. Don't you even dare speak that fucking into existence, Roseanne Barr. God damn it. I mean, again, would fit right in line with what we know about this administration. It wouldn't surprise me in the least, but imagine Roseanne Barr going out there singing the national anthem before her press conferences every single day. Fuck me. Jesus Christ.
The president had asked her, Pamela, to stay on as a top advisor to her. Of course, that would be a role that would be outside of the White House.
Why is the sound not matching up on this? I have no idea. It's not matching up for me, in case you're wondering why it's not matching up for you either. Not matching up for me, so my apologies.
Does seem that she's agreed to that, but it's a loss for this White House, particularly at a time, as I mentioned, when they're going to be in a very difficult period on messaging around the midterm elections, with everything going on with the Iran war. To lose a messenger like Karoline. One last thing I want to say is I've been catching up with some staffers here since the news broke. It's not immediately.
This should go well. This audio, just the difference between the audio and the video should go well for making clips out of this live.
Clear, at least to some of the staffers I spoke with, who would actually replace her. So we're staying tuned for that. When she was out on maternity leave for the month of June, there wasn't really a real replacement. At times, you had people like Marco Rubio or the vice president, J.D. Vance, do a briefing, but not in the way that she has in the past. So I think that'll be a question for who will pick up the helm from Leavitt.
Yeah, and she says that the truth is, since returning to the White House after the birth of my daughter, I have felt in my heart that I cannot be the best mom my two young children deserve while devoting the constant time, energy, and attention required of the White House press secretary. All right, Elena Treen at the White House.
And again, it is a possibility still, obviously, that she just got fed up with this whole thing. Like she's lied enough. She's kind of, she's hit her limit as far as lies she can tell to the American people and still look her fucking family in the eye, still look her kids in the face. I don't know how she's going to do it at this point, considering the damages that this Republican Party has done to women and women's rights, what they've done to the trans and LGBTQIA community at large. Like, I don't know how you could possibly go back and look your little kids in the face, but maybe she's just, she's hit her fill. I kind of find that hard to imagine, considering, just how deeply invested she is in this administration and the lies that they've propagated. But, it's still very much could be true that she sees the writing on the wall as well, as far as where this, the midterms are going, where the war in Iran is heading, the pressures put upon our economy, where the strategic oil reserve is going. Like, maybe she's got insight, so she's got active people within the White House that are giving her information, and that may have been, a huge reason behind her decision, as well as she can only lie so much. She can only get this administration out of so much trouble, and with all of the trouble and all of the the problems piling on right now going into midterms, and Donald Trump not giving a shit, and him being increasingly more difficult to control. Maybe she's kind of, all right, now's the time to back out before, again, the shit really starts hitting the fan and spraying all over this White House. You know what I mean?
Thank you so much. My panel is back with us. What do you think? I mean, in one hand, it's not a surprise in the sense that she just had a baby. That is a tough job to juggle with two young kids. But on the other hand,
I can't deal with the fucking audio being off anymore. So I appreciate that. I appreciate them for their commentary. But all right, let's see if we can jump on here, because this is what this is leading to. And I think this is possibly some of the reason behind Karoline Leavitt's decision here, and why she's, deciding to get out now, as opposed to, I don't know, several months ago when she had the baby, or after midterms, to kind of see this thing through. So this is, kind of two different CNN clips that I want to put together. One is from, I believe, a couple weeks ago, just to kind of show you how consistent these polls have been. I know we don't put too much stock into polls here at Blunt Politics, but if you see the consistency of the polls, if you see who they're asking, especially when it pertains more to the GOP, independents and stuff like that, it doesn't matter the numbers, doesn't matter the explicit and specific numbers that they're giving you or anything like that, but the consistency of the polls and just how poor they are as far as showing for the GOP, Donald Trump, and the Republicans. That's the consistency that I'm recognizing, and not so much, again, the specific numbers in the polls. It's kind of the bad after bad after bad and consistently getting worse. But all right, this is the first one. Like I said, I think this one is from a couple weeks ago. And this is talking about, and I think this is the one where I can skip right to the end, if I'm not mistaken, where Harry Anton pretty much compares Donald Trump's numbers to, historically low numbers of presidents in the past. And then I believe this is the one where he goes on to compare even Pete Hegseth to, defense secretaries in the past as well. If I might be getting these mixed up, so that might be the next one as well. But let's see here. Yeah, you can play. It'd be great if you played. Fantastic. Play. No? Not going to do it for me? What's happening? Why is the sound off, and then why is it just not playing? Am I going to have to refresh? Just play. What the fuck? All right, refresh. Hit me with a refresh.
Given that we do appear to be in full-scale fighting again, I wanted to know.
Pause. All right, now we're going to go to the end here in this last segment that I want to get to, and then we'll start this all over again. Hopefully this works.
Voters at this point. The cake is getting baked, and what's being baked
and daisies, I'll tell you that much. I mean, just take a look here. Okay, Trump's net approval rating. You know, a lot of stuff has happened over the last few months. Has any of that really lifted Trump from record lows for these given pollsters or second record lows? Not really. I mean, just take a look here. The Washington Post, his all-time lowest was minus 25 points back in April in terms of his net approval rating. It's approval minus disapproval. Now it's the second worst, tied for the second worst of all time at minus 24 points. CNBC was at his second lowest level at minus 18 points. And now he's at the record low for him in CNBC, minus 19 points. When you put it together, what essentially is going on is there are a lot of events in the world, but this cake, as we get closer and closer to the midterm elections, is starting to look at least a little bit baked here.
All right. I mean, I suppose you could say if you're Republican, the good news is not getting worse, but you actually need it to be getting better.
Correct. These are horrible numbers, Johnny B.
So put it in historical perspective.
Yeah, just how horrible are these numbers? I mean, it's the worst this century for a president at this point in his second term.
The worst this century for a president at this point in his second term, right? And just putting a couple of them together, as he says here, net approval, 21st century president in the second term. Bush, minus 20 points. Obama, minus 8. Trump, minus 22 points. So again, the most unpopular person, president of the 21st century, even more unpopular, as we continue to say, than after his January 6th insurrection attempt to stop the certification of a free and fair election. That led to the deaths of police officers, right? That led to the deaths of his supporters as well. And after that, he still is lower, more unpopular, and less liked today than he was after that.
Look at an average of the CNBC and Washington Post polls. I mean, we're talking about right here, the average of CNBC and Washington Post, minus 22 points. Barack Obama was underwater, but not anywhere near this level. He was at minus 8. And George W. Bush, in the middle of the Iraq War, when that was going south, he was at minus 20 points.
In the middle of the Iraq War, when it was going south, so not even when, the country had come together and the lies that they were feeding us were, kind of promulgated through the citizenry, and we actually kind of were on, one front, you know what I mean? We kind of had one mission in mind and one goal. Like this is when it was turned into shit. This is when we had already spent billions and billions of dollars and led to the deaths of hundreds and thousands of Iraqis and God knows how many at that point, U.S. servicemen and women. And we saw that this was turning into a forever war that was definitely not going to obtain or achieve the goals that were originally stated. We found out the lies that we were told about, going in there in the first place. Like even then, after all that, George Bush was minus 20 points. Donald Trump now, and this was a couple weeks ago, like just make sure that everybody knows this, using this just to kind of set the stage. A couple weeks ago was 22 points underwater. So 2 points lower than George Bush as the Iraq War was going to shit.
So at this point, Donald John Trump is in fact holding the record for the lowest net approval rating for a president in a second term at this point in the second term of any president in the 21st century.
And if you think that's bad.
And if you think this is bad, what is driving this number? It's independence, baby. It's independence. Look, all time worst at this point in a second term net approval rating among independents, Donald John Trump. This segment has been about baking. He takes the cake.
Fucking 8 points worse than Nixon. Worst net approvals with independents, right? At this point in his second term, independents hated George Bush to the extent of minus 31 points, hated Richard Nixon to the level of minus 37 points, hate Donald Trump exponentially worse to the level of minus 45 fucking points. To again become I don't even know what you'd say, the most least popular president, as far as that's concerned, with independents of this entire century.
Minus 45 points among independents, even worse than Richard Milhouse Nixon, who was about to leave office because of Watergate, who had previously held the record at minus 37 points, and the aforementioned George W. Bush at minus 31 points. Donald John Trump, the worst ever rating, net approval rating, with independents at this point in a second term.
We reported this morning that gas prices back up over $4 a gallon. That probably won't help. What are the prediction markets saying about gas prices?
Yeah, they're going to climb ever higher. Okay, what are we talking about here? Chance that gas prices hit $4.10 a gallon, at least above that level. It was 14% on July 13th. Now an 84% chance. If you thought Donald Trump's numbers
were just bad after bad after bad, and you can be rest assured that Karoline Leavitt sees the writing on the wall. Okay, she knows these polling numbers. She knows the sentiment of the people in her town, her family, her friends, what they're seeing, what they're hearing as far as, chatter on the ground. So she knows this shit. And it goes even deeper, too, because it's not just Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump's unpopular. The lies that he told to his administration. Shut up. shut up in the background. You know the lies that he told to his base, and we've seen the, basically the opposite of every single one of those promises and policies come to fruition. Well, it's his entire fucking cabinet as well as this next clip, and this is a newer clip. This is from 7 hours ago, and this is talking about the rest of the jackasses in his administration being just as, or if not more, unpopular than Donald Trump is. So it's not like it's just Trump and people respect the rest of the administration and it's just one bad apple. No, this entire administration of fucknuts is just that. People see them for what they are. They're a fucking bunch of morons in there. And this is, more polling to suggest that's what the sentiment around this country is. This is Trump administration officials' net job approval in percentage points. Rubio is at -8 somehow, the least hated of the people that are on the screen. Then RFK is at a -9, Vance at -17, and Hegseth, the worst of them all, for good reason, at -22. I don't know, and I think they even bring this up where, Hegseth and Rubio being kind of the most hawkish as far as war on Iran, and somehow Rubio's coming out of this smelling like roses. Meanwhile, Hegseth's getting the brunt of the backlash from the American people, and people, obviously, that took part in this poll, at least. But all right, let's see if we can take a look at a couple minutes of just how unpopular the people surrounding Donald Trump are, because we've hit upon, just how unpopular Donald Trump is at this point, but let's see how far this filters down to the pieces of shit underneath him as well.
Job approval rating. Look, they're all underwater here. You got 4 guys across your screen. You got Marco Rubio, who's at -8. You got RFK Jr., -9. You got J.D. Vance, the vice president, -17. But who takes the cake here? Look at this. Pete Hegseth, as I said, the lowest of the low, 22 points underwater. And this has been something that's been going on throughout the entire administration. He has been underwater in every single poll that I could find. That is his job disapproval rating being above his job approval rating, and Iran has not.
The comparison to Rubio here is really apt because they're both seen as involved with the war in Iran,
Correct.
But Rubio's -8, Hegseth -22.
Yeah, Rubio is the one who, relatively speaking, has come out smelling like roses, especially as he looks ahead to 2028, potentially in J.D. Vance.
All right, so talk about Pete Hegseth.
And that's interesting, too, because I wonder if at some point we're going to see J.D. Vance start to, slightly throw Rubio under the bus as far as, kind of his willingness to see this war in Iran through or to see it start to begin with, because that's something that, J.D. Vance is going to have to differentiate himself. He was the one that was, kind of the most outspoken, as the reporting was suggesting, as far as not wanting this Iran war to start, or at least kind of speaking up about the dangers of starting a war like this. Marco Rubio for years has been talking about going to war with not just Cuba, with Iran, and he's a war hawk like the rest of these scumbags. But he, at this point, seemingly is more than double as I don't know what you'd say, as popular, or only half as disliked as J.D. Vance. So at some point, I would suspect that you're likely to see J.D. Vance try to make it more apparent that Marco Rubio was for this war. If he has any further aspirations for political power going forward, like, he's going to have to start at some point separating himself from the actions of this administration, which, we've talked about this before. It's a very difficult situation for J.D. Vance to be in, because he has to, in some way, let the people know that he's not the same, that he's going to be different, and he would do things differently, while also not pissing off Donald Trump, while also not making himself the kind of the black sheep of the administration and going against the party line or going against the Der Fuhrer too much. So he's in that difficult position of having to, disassociate himself with some of these actions, while also having to go out there and, kind of cheerlead for these actions at the same time.
To other past secretaries of defense who may have had, shall we say, popularity issues.
Yeah, the one that comes to my mind in the middle of a war is Donald
So now
Trump.
this is Pete Hegseth being compared to one of probably, if not the most disliked Secretary of Defenses in history, or at least that Harry Enten could look up, and we'll see how this compares.
Fell back in 2006, right? Heading into a midterm election where it doesn't look like your party is going to do particularly well. Net popularity rating of defense secretaries at this point in midterm. Look at this. Pete Hegseth, again, 22 points underwater. This is historically low.
More than 3 times as unpopular as Donald Rumsfeld was in August of 2006. And you'll recall that I believe, and I think he says it in this clip, where Donald Rumsfeld was removed, or was forced to resign, I should say, just after midterms because of his unpopularity. Right? Because of how much he was responsible for the damages and the degradation that Republicans saw in those midterm elections. Pete Hegseth is 3 times as unpopular as Donald fucking Rumsfeld. Like, just to put it in perspective, guys. You know what I mean? Because we do this every single day. We bash on these morons every day. We talk about how stupid they are, the moronic things that they say, you know, the egregious and criminal acts that they've been responsible for in their past. And sometimes it just kind of gets almost mundane. You don't even start to recognize or realize some of the things that you're pointing out to a certain extent. But this is fucking wild, okay? To see that they're 3 times as unpopular as Donald Rumsfeld, who again was forced to resign after midterms, and Pete Hegseth is still getting, you know, at least forward-facing the support of Donald Trump. We've talked about recently, you know, the Hegseth spat with Donald Trump at Camp David. So, you know, what we see coming forward, what we see as far as like, you know, Hegseth's life expectancy as Secretary of Defense obviously is up for debate. I think they bring this up in this clip as well. Like Pam Bondi and people like Kirsty Noem were much less hated and had better numbers as far as popularity was concerned than Pete Hegseth currently has. And look where they found themselves. They found themselves with Donald Trump's boot squarely up their ass. Well, not Kristi Noem's ass. She doesn't have an ass to put a boot up into, but you know what I'm saying. But let's see here. I think he explains this kind of in the next clip.
It's Donald Rumsfeld, who wasn't exactly smelling the roses. He was 7 points underwater. Again, a net popularity rating in the negative underwater, but still 15 points better than Pete Hegseth. And why is this comparison in my mind so much? Is because, remember, Don Rumsfeld was essentially forced to resign after those midterm elections, after Republicans got crushed. And I think there's some question, if the midterms go the way that a lot of folks think they might go, will Donald Trump's tune on this gentleman right here perhaps change a little bit? Well, we'll have to wait and see.
He still has his job for now, the Secretary of Defense. How does he compare in terms of popularity to cabinet secretaries who no longer have their jobs?
Yeah, okay, Johnny B. had it exactly right. You know, as I said, Donald Trump has been defending Pete Hegseth. But I have to ask the question, for how long? Because he's defended a lot of other secretaries in his cabinet, and then they went, adios, amigos, goodbye, see you later.
I mean, I think it's a fair thing to point out, because Donald Trump always defends people until he doesn't defend them anymore, right? Until he feels like they didn't defend him enough or they're not useful in their situation anymore. So he's willing to do some sort of kind of cleanup for these idiots, but only so much. It only goes so far until, again, they've expended their usefulness, or again, they're creating, you know, too much turmoil or bringing too much bad attention to the administration. So you can see here, pre-firing, Kirsty Noem was at minus 16 points. Pam Bondi at minus 20. Pete Hegseth blows them out of the water at minus 22 points. So again, it raises the question as like how long Pete Hegseth is going to remain within this administration, you know, at least at that spot at the Pentagon. So, you know, fair question.
Overrating of Pete Hegseth now, 22 points underwater. Well, Pam Bondi was only 20 points underwater before she got sent packing by Donald Trump. And Kristi Noem was 16 points underwater before she got packing by Donald Trump. And now we got Pete Hegseth, who is more unpopular than either of these two women on the left side of your screen. So again, I have to ask the question is, how long is Donald Trump going to stick by Pete Hegseth? He is currently, but these numbers suggest he might not always be.
How do voters feel?
And again, as you see that they're all underwater here, this is his net approval on jobs he goes through, which none of these are good. None of these are good. And then it was the what's the next one? So, the feelings about Trump and Iran is the last thing, last thing that he talks about there. But all right, so he's talking about how unpopular and underwater this entire administration is, including Donald Trump. But being underwater is probably a good segue into this next, portion of the show, because of the things that they're talking about. This is a Mediaite article, which is now detailing what a lot of people are speaking about, which is the ridiculous conditions that Donald Trump is now forcing our U.S. military to exist under, for his long, ridiculous war that was supposed to be a very short war that, has kept these ships out there for vastly longer deployments than they're actually used to or should be out there, serving. But this is now talking about how the sailors are being pushed to the limit and over the limits, which, we've talked about the psyche of the sailors out there, the conditions they've been held under, the food that they've been given, the fires and the plumbing issues, all of these things that goes into the morale, the psyche of the soldiers out there we've talked about. But this is, again, Mediaite says sailors on the USS Abraham Lincoln reportedly take desperate measures amid months-long deployment and poor conditions. And again, it's not the it's not the measures that you would likely think on this. It's bad. You know what I mean? So it says sailors on the San Diego-based USS Abraham Lincoln have begun jumping overboard amid months-long deployment and reportedly poor conditions, according to a report. Now, how fucking bad and how stir crazy do you have to be in order to attempt, if not, go through with jumping off of an aircraft carrier, jumping off of a fucking a destroyer, whatever it may be, in the middle of the Mediterranean, in the middle of the Red Sea, in the middle of wherever the fuck you're talking about in these situations? Like, it's got to be extremely bad. Like, you have to be pushed, like I said, to the limits and well beyond the limits of what a sailor, a soldier should be pushed to. Like the length of deployments without seeing ports, the length of, time going from, station to sleep to station to sleep to station to sleep. Like that, there's an obvious reason as to why the deployments are typically within a certain time frame, if they can handle it, if they can, if it can be timed right, if it's, if it's an option for them to come back in that circumstance. And it's because you start to go fucking crazy. Like, these sailors need time away. They need time off. They need time to speak to people. They need time to, recuperate. The R&R that you hear so much and so frequently as it pertains to military is desperately needed. So when you talk about bad food for a consistent period of time at sea, when you talk about, not having the mail get to you, not having service to speak to your family for long periods of time, like, it has a drastic impact. And we're now talking about that as far as these reports are concerned, because it says here that more than 5,000 sailors and Marines have been deployed on the Lincoln since November 21st. The Nimitz-class nuclear-powered aircraft carrier has been in the North Arabian Sea supporting the United States operations against Iran, a conflict which began February 28th and has shown no signs of stopping. Families have complained at a meeting with Navy officials last week. More than 8 months deployment in deteriorating conditions on the ship, noting clogged toilets, mildew in the showers, food supply issues, and serious mental health concerns for those aboard, according to MS Now. One parent claimed their daughter thought she would die on the ship, the outlet reported. Just how long it felt like they were on there with no end in sight, right? That's just the feelings, the sentiment of people on the ship. It says now some sailors appear to be taking matters into their own hands. One woman whose husband, a 13-year Navy veteran, attempted to leap overboard, says he's now on medical hold and frightened for the future. He's scared, Annabelle Loma said, the Navy veteran's wife. Her husband's deployment had been extended numerous times, she told the outlet. He thinks he'll get a dishonorable discharge, and just because he was burnt out, his 13-year career is ruined just like that. That's not fair. That's not right. That's not what he should be worrying about right now. Another spouse, Maria Rodriguez, said her husband managed to catch a fellow sailor before they could jump, pulling them back onto the deck and prompting 3 others to run to help. He said he hadn't felt adrenaline like that in his life. He was just so thankful he was able to get to the sailor in time to stop them from going overboard, Rodriguez told the Navy Times. Other relatives voiced similar concerns, including high schooler Shelby Sanders, whose mom has been serving on the Lincoln. When she can email me, she's definitely down, the youngster said. I think they've had 5 weeks of nonstop combat operations or something like that, so that makes it really tough to communicate consistently or even know if they'll be able to. It sucks. I don't know how to enjoy starting my senior year when my mom isn't here, Will she be back before homecoming, my birthday, Christmas? I have no idea, and that's all I think about. Manuel Gorvera said his son has sounded exhausted during his deployment. He says, quote, I don't want to worry about the circumstances of his deployment. We'll get the best of my son, and he doesn't make it back home, Guevara said. There's an unbearable burden on my heart. The Navy declined to discuss any individual cases, but insisted to mediate that it had not found an increase in suicidal sailors on the USS Abraham Lincoln. Quote, we know that extended deployments place a significant strain on our service members and their families, and we are grateful for their resilience and sacrifices they make in support of our nation's security, a spokesperson said in a statement. The health and well-being of every sailor aboard Abraham Lincoln is a priority. Based on information available to the command, we have not identified an increase in reported suicidal ideation or suicide attempts aboard the ship, the spokesperson added. We take every service member's well-being seriously and have religious, medical, and mental health professionals available to assess and address concerns as they arise. Lincoln is providing a comprehensive support network, including onboard deployment resilience counselors, chaplains, fleet and family support center services, military one source, and medical professionals. But again, the sentiment and the stories coming from the soldiers, sailors, and family paint a vastly different picture. And let me just see, because this is one of the instances that we talked about some time ago. I believe this was in February, if I'm not mistaken. And this is aboard the USS Gerald R. Ford. And this is just looking at some of the plumbing issues that these sailors were facing aboard this ship. Now, let's just put this on your screen. And I can tell you, as a former plumber, that this is not how that works. That's not how that's supposed to look, not how that's supposed to function. I think that's what we'd like to call in the business an issue. I think that's a fucking problem. Oh, thank you, D. Much appreciated, DPD, for the $20 contribution. Attention, boycott Walmart because they have permanently banned Damon, Darling, whose only crime was paying for individual groceries. You know, a kind deed. We must light up corporate to voice our disdain for their cruelty. I don't know who Damon is. Damon in the chat? Dame Dog in the chat, sorry if I'm picking up late on that conversation. I don't know exactly what you're referring to, but definitely appreciate the sentiment and definitely appreciate the $20 contribution, DPD. My apologies for not being more up to speed on exactly what you're talking about. But yeah, this is, the first thing that we learned in plumbing school is that the water typically stays in the toilet, probably. So this was one of the videos taken by one of the sailors on there. I think here's another angle of some of the other problems and how it kind of spread. Right, so it's just kind of being washed side to side, feces and piss and, everything else. So not exactly what you want to see in a very long deployment on your ship, especially in the bathrooms, the restrooms where, something that you'll have to frequent regularly, let's just say. And then you can see here the cleanup in process from the Gerald R. Ford. And I believe it went on. I believe there was even more problems. There was the fire. Let me throw this on your screen. This is from March, I believe. This says March 30th, breaking USS Gerald R. Ford, mysterious laundry fire. So this is the laundry fire that they were talking about. And this was just some footage from on board that. So you can hear him kind of breathing through what sounds like a respirator or some sort of breathing apparatus, which shows that there is some level of toxicity, related to this. But yeah, you can see obviously the conditions that these sailors are under. This is again on the USS Gerald R. Ford, if I'm not mistaken. And just some of the aftermath from the fire there. And then there was also this. Aaron Parnas posted along the same lines with this story. It says, exclusive text messages from a service member aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln shows horrific conditions. They do not have any fresh food. One service member questioned if the government is doing this intentionally to see how far they can push sailors' limits. So let's see if we can just throw this on your screen real quick. This says, quote, why isn't there milk? So the supply ship that comes here can't bring fruits and stuff because it can't stay fresh. It can't stay fresh long enough within the time it takes to get them here. Then the family member, I'm assuming, responded, wow, any idea who is supposed to come relieve you guys in August? So we haven't had anything fresh but meat because it's frozen. It freezed, it says. Sometimes it gets here rotten, talking about the meat. And I think you'll recall, let me see this. Could probably throw this. U.S. sailors mystery meat. Remember these pictures going around from some of the from some of the food that was being served. Yeah, this one right here. So the one on your left-hand screen. It says, pictures published by USA Today shows meals served recently to sailors aboard the Nimitz-class aircraft carrier, the USS Abraham Lincoln, which is a CVN-72, as well as Marines serving on the USS Tripoli, the LHA-7, an American-class amphibious assault ship, both of which are currently deployed in the Arabian Sea in order to enforce the ongoing naval blockade against the coastal areas of Iran. But this is like that mystery, don't know what the fuck that is. Like, is that meat? Is that the bottom of a shoe? I don't know. That kind of looks like carrots, I guess. That could be. And then this other pile of what looks like steaming cow dung is also what they were being served. But not even enough to take up all the fucking spots on the tray in this one. But this is, right in line with what we've seen as far as the treatment, the conditions that they have to survive under, in this prolonged war, this prolonged threat that Donald Trump said would be over in no time, that we see absolutely no safe passage out of, that we see absolutely no off-ramp. And again, this is a little bit more from that as well. I think this was... No, that's not what I had pulled up. What the fuck is that? Well, let me see if I go back. We'll pull up the right one. So I thought I had one on here about the story from The Guardian, if I'm not mistaken. See if I can scroll through this real quick, because it seems to have reset on me. No, it wasn't that one. It wasn't that one. I think it was the one with The Guardian. I know I'm talking to myself, but I think it was the one with The Guardian on it. Nope, not that one. For crying out loud. Here's another one from Aaron Parnas talking about this from 6 hours ago. Here's what the families of the service members are saying right now about their family members aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln. Says, my husband is on board, and he and many others who work shifts have been getting less than 5 hours of sleep a night for months. It's not just a lack of food, lack of water. It's everything combined. I have been so worried about his mental health and physical health since the war started, and it's just getting worse. And I think there was also another post on here, if I can find it in time. No, I don't think I went this far back. Let's see here. Type in USS Abraham Lincoln, see if that pulls it up. I'm loving it. 6 U.S. sailors aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier have tried to jump overboard in attempted suicide as catastrophic mental health crisis reaches breaking point over exhaustion, food shortages, water contamination, deteriorating conditions, supply shortages, lack of basic hygiene products, and poor quality rations aboard the carrier. The 5,000 sailors and Marines have been deployed at sea for more than 250 consecutive days over 9 months without making land due to the ongoing Iran war, with the deployment originally anticipated to end in May, but now extended with no publicly announced return date. Families describe conditions aboard as hellish. CENTCOM commanders warn of impending mutiny if conditions aboard the ship don't change for the better, with Iranian strikes on U.S. military bases having severely disrupted logistics for the deployed sailors and Marines, which you just heard being described by that sailor, basically saying sometimes the meat gets to us, sometimes the fruit gets to us, but it's rotten if it does. Let's see here, because there was another one, and I forget what it had said now, and I'm probably not going to see it. Was it this one? There have been reportedly multiple attempts by sailors jumping overboard the USS Lincoln. This was the photo associated with the post that I had pulled up, but I just don't think that's the one. What's this one? Multiple sailors in the have attempted to go overboard, and the carrier's deployment stretches into its 9th month. That's the text messages that we just wrote. So obviously I'm not going to find it because it's... Oh, is this it? Yeah, maybe this was it. I think this was what I was talking about here. Bill Crystal said, these sailors are being put through this for a war that is unauthorized by Congress and for which funds haven't been appropriated by Congress. A war that is now utterly pointless, in which Trump simply does not have the courage to end. Disgraceful. And that's talking about the Guardian article here on the sailors above the USS Abraham Lincoln and their, shitty situation and unbelievably long deployment that they've been facing. But all right, let's see if we can move on here, because kind of along the same lines, we have another report here from General Longface from Fox News. And again, he's changing his tune. He's gone from, the United States needs to escalate if they ever want to see kind of any benefit from this war or anything they can claim as a victory, to now stating that the United States is on the back foot and that it's Iran that's most likely to get more aggressive as Donald Trump decides to, again, release, leak and release reports that he's trying to get out of this war. He's trying to low-key it, as some of the reporting was saying. But this is General Keane warns that Iran will likely get more aggressive, which is the complete and total opposite that he was talking about to his Fox News viewers and to the people watching this bullshit about a week ago. if I'm not mistaken. So I just want to play a couple minutes of this where, again, General Longface, General Jack Keane on Fox News, basically threatening the opposite of what he was asking for and calling for just a few days ago, which was escalation by the United States. Now saying that it's more likely the Iranians that are going to get more aggressive, seeing that Donald Trump is weak in this position, seeing that midterms is going to have an effect on what Donald Trump can and cannot do. And they're going to exploit that as far as the Iranians are concerned. So I just want to dive into a couple minutes of this. And then we have a few more clips. Again, the Russians are struggling to find volunteers for their war. Both Jake Bro and Denis Davidov to speak about successful Ukrainian attacks as well. So stick around for that. Please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell if you could. That would be a fantastic way for us to skirt the old algorithm that typically, keeps its boot on the necks of independent channels like this one that speak about very important, serious, and sometimes divisive topics like we do here. So if you guys could help in any way, shape, or form with $1 or $2 to the Venmo, $1 or $2 in the super chat, in the chat through a super chat, a super sticker, or again, any way you can. If you could head over to bostonbrian.com, check out the Blunt Politics merch shop. We got hats and stickers and mugs and sweatshirts and t-shirts and tank tops. We get everything on there, and I think the designs that you'll see, you'll be a little bit surprised that a channel of less than 25,000 subscribers has such fantastic merch that again shows everybody what side of the aisle, what side of history you actually lie on. All right, let's check out this Fox News General Longface clip here.
I don't trust Iran. They've lied to me constantly. We have total control over the Hormuz Strait right now.
Just a fucking sloppy, sweaty, wrinkly, disgusting mess right now. Just an absolute shit show of a human being presented to the world as the commander-in-chief and the president of the United States of America. Look at this fucking person in front of your screen. Un-goddamn believable.
Maybe they'll do something and then they get blown away. But right now, we're in a very good position.
He's lost control of the situation. That's what it comes down to.
Fucking guy's shinier than people just leaving a P. Diddy party, for Christ's sakes.
He started an illegal war, didn't consult Congress, didn't consult his allies, didn't have a plan.
True.
Oh, varying opinions about where things stand in the
Iran. No, I think actually everything that last gentleman said was factual. Was that Auchincloss? Am I getting that one right? Or am I getting that one wrong? I forget who that last guy was that just spoke, but he was spitting facts, I can assure you.
Conflict. Let's bring in Fox News senior strategic analyst, retired General Jack Keane.
Why the long face, Jack?
Always good to see you. Where do you think we sit tonight?
Yeah, well, I think a couple things have certainly taken place here.
Yeah, what do you
If we go back to April the 7th, we recognize that's when we went to a ceasefire. The objective was to go into negotiations at Iran's invitation to open up the Straits of Hormuz, which they had blocked since March the 2nd. The war began on February the 28th. And so we entered a diplomatic phase as that was objective one. Objective two is a nuclear deal. And that still hasn't happened. So the diplomatic phase, certainly the president is frustrated by it. You've heard his comments. You can't talk to these guys. They're unwilling to really make substantive compromise. And even when they make a deal, like they did over the memorandum of understanding, both presidents sign it. Within days, they violated, and the principal agreement was the Straits of Hormuz.
Yeah, it's almost like you shouldn't start with a fucking government like this, right? It's almost like it's inevitable that you get into a situation like this with people that you can't trust and you can't beat militarily, apparently. Then you start getting into these crossroads where the forever war start situation comes into play, or there's just so much overwhelming benefit afforded to the enemy in this situation, which is Iran, that it becomes impossible almost for the United States to get out of it at that point in time because of the embarrassment that would face. So again, the roles have reversed. See how they were trying to make Iran come to the negotiating table? It was supposed to be on the United States terms that, we kind of bullied them around and forced them to do this, that, and the other thing. Well, now it's flipped. Now it's Iran bullying the shit out of the United States, forcing the United States to say either yes or no to the, to the frozen assets, say yes or no to the ability to sell oil, the relinquishing of the sanctions, all of the things that we've seen Iran demand. Now it's on, the United States is on the back foot because if they don't agree to that, we've heard recently that the Iranians are more than happy, more than ready, and more than willing to keep that son of a bitch straight closed till 2029, until Donald Trump is either dead and buried or gone from the White House forever. And that's just, again, a time frame that the United States cannot live by, with the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, with the pressure placed upon this economy, with the amount of people that are now fucking feeling the crunch and the pinch of these exorbitantly high prices for everything. Like, we don't have that fucking time frame. We don't have that much time to fuck around, and the Iranians know it. Right. So whether or not they're actually willing to do that, whether or not they're actually able to do that, is a whole other question. But they feel comfortable enough. They feel in control enough to, again, present that as their stance, to present that as how they're feeling, because they know that Donald Trump is in a weak position. They know that Donald Trump and the Republicans are very worried about midterm elections and kind of, what tips the scale in whose favor as far as that's concerned. And they're exploiting that.
And then the second thing that is happening is certainly, why did the president stop military operations on April the 7th?
Because April the 7th. I'm not sure. April, May, June, July, August, September. I'm not sure. I forget which one he's talking about now. There's been so many different pauses, ceasefires, MOUs. We're going to do this. We'll blow them up. No, we won't. We're going to stop. No, we're going to keep going. So, sorry. I'm going to figure out which one he's talking about here more specifically.
It was a shift, I think, in terms of his priorities, which at the time were military objectives, and economic and political objectives became paramount. And you defined why on your chart there. By the way, that whole thing was very well done. And that fact is continuing up to this day. And it definitely has to deal with the political, midterms, economic, oil and gas prices. And that is a reality that the administration is trying to deal with. It doesn't.
So again, he's putting this in the most mild terms possible for this audience, trying to put it as lightly, as humanly possible for this audience. He doesn't want to make it too brash sounding. He doesn't want to talk about defeat or, backpedaling or capitulation or anything like that. But that's what he's explaining. He's explaining, how that stop in April was very much like the stop that we've seen more recently, because of the economic ramifications, because of the limitations on the stockpiles, because of the limitations on interceptors. Like, we're not in the military position to continue forward. And we've already failed, strategically. We've already failed militarily. We've already failed in the negotiating process as well. So we're kind of left, again, fighting off the back foot here, trying to scramble for the best possible outcome. And there just is no best possible outcome. All outcomes now are bad. It's just how bad they're going to be, how much Iran is going to win, how much they're going to be afforded, how much, China and Russia come out of this smelling like roses. If inevitably, the ships that they send through the strait aren't going to have to pay the tolls, aren't going to have to pay the fees. So it just remains to be seen how bad this is. It's going to be bad in no matter which way this ends. It's just, again, the extent of which, Iran is going to be able to profit, benefit, and continuously utilize their power given to them and afforded to them and handed to them by Donald Trump, as far as the Strait of Hormuz, as far as their newfound military power and prowess that people have to respect, especially in the fucking, in the Middle East, within the Gulf nations and the Gulf partners as well. Like, that's going to have to be respected from some time, for quite some time now. And it's just, again, how much they're going to benefit from this war is the last question.
That they're not going to return to combat operations. And I think the Iranians are in a position now where they believe, for two reasons, they have the upper hand.
Listen.
One, you defined it right there. Their influence over both of those. They don't control that, but either do we totally control it either.
Wait, whoa, Jack. What the fuck? You can't just completely call Donald Trump an asshole like that, the way you just did. He says that we have complete and total control over the Strait of Hormuz. I will have you know, Jack, for God's sakes, get your fucking talking points right. But yeah, he's accurately pointing out one of the reasons that they feel so strong right now in Iran is the fact that they do control these two very important strategic waterways that, again, were open before the war was started. But this is, again, what we've talked about for quite some time. The Strait of Hormuz in conjunction with the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, and how much control and power that actually afforded both the Houthis and then the Houthis and the Iranians, as far as being a unit, a team in conjunction with one another as their proxy. So that's one reason. And then listen to the next reason that he gives is the political aspect, the political, angle of this, and the midterms coming up, and how Donald Trump is less and less likely to pull out a drastic maneuver the closer we get into midterms, depending on who's chirping in his ear, for the Republican Party.
What they do have is influence over it as a result of their ability to disrupt it. And obviously, we have shut down all of Iran's ports in terms of entrance and exit from those ports. So that's one thing. And I think they're achieving that, exceeded their expectations. The second thing, I think, that in their minds they believe they have an upper hand, is when they attack the allies in the region. They knew that would have some benefit. But I think it absolutely surprised them that the allies, more than one time, these are the Gulf states who are oil-producing countries, came to the president, and more than one time, I think 3 times is reported, got him to stand down from military operations. That is impactful.
Specifically because of the interceptor issue, right? And I'm sure, obviously, because of the levels of destruction, the level of damage, the impact to tourism. I'm sure there's a multitude of factors that went into this, but I'm sure a lot of the reason that Donald Trump was getting phone calls from our allies telling him not to be a fucking nut job, like we saw recently when he threatened, the World War II like fucking bombings, and basically how everybody called him right away. Yes, and it wasn't from Iran that you were getting phone calls. It was from Qatar. It was from UAE. It was from Saudi Arabia saying, hey, listen, dickhead, if you launch against them again, they're going to retaliate against us. And I hope we have nothing to shoot that shit down with. So we're going to get fucked right up the asshole. It's not going to be you guys. It's going to be your bases that have been hit 30,000 times already, but we're going to take the brunt of this. So those are the phone calls, and that's exactly what this general, Jack Keane, is explaining right now. That's why the Iranians have heard this. They've seen this reported. They know this is what's happening through their intermediaries, through the people that they're communicating with, that this is the reality on the ground, that they're worried the Gulf regions, people that have U.S. bases on their land, people that have allowed the United States to conduct war from their territory, that they're the targets, okay? They're the people that are going to feel the brunt of the retaliations from the ballistic, hypersonic, and drones that Iran is inevitably going to be shooting back at them if Donald Trump went through with any round of bombing. And again, that 2-week escalatory campaign that was being reported, undoubtedly out there to try to intimidate the Iranians, but didn't seem to work. Now they just see Donald Trump backing down once again. They see the Gulf nations calling for Donald Trump to back down once again. And it's giving the Iranians more and more confidence and more ability to kind of overstep the victory that they've achieved so far, like just how far they've been able to push this, and I think the stupidity and lack of military strategy coming from Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth has given them the kind of maybe false senses of security to push that envelope even further. So that's something that we've talked about again in it's Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth that have given them ability to even step above and beyond what the realities on the ground are.
In their minds. So when they look at this phase here, they see the midterms coming. My gut feel is that they're likely going to get more aggressive because they don't believe the president will do much prior to the midterms. So
the Iranians are likely to get more aggressive. It's not the United States that's going to act aggressive or get aggressive, right? It's not the United States that's going to force, Iran's hands. That's not going to, do this, that, or the other thing to bring them to the negotiating table. It's now the Iranians that are going to put more and more pressure on the United States, because they know all of these different things that are going on behind the scenes, whether it's the allies not wanting to see, escalatory periods and the bombing continue, the continued control over the Strait of Hormuz and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, midterms coming up. So all of these things that they're seeing, they're recognizing, and they're taking into account, and they're now, using it to their advantage. So you can hear there from Jack Keane exactly what we warned about. Basically, that, the position that Donald Trump has gotten us into, not only the degradation of our U.S. forces, obviously, as we've seen with the the reports coming from the USS Abraham Lincoln and the USS Gerald R. Ford and other ships within that, but also the ability that the Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth have given Iran to kind of exploit this situation, right? So even above and beyond what the realities on the ground are, Iran has been given the ability to to kind of walk even above and beyond that. But all right, let's jump into this next clip as I'm rapidly running out of time here. My apologies, my yapping mouth. That's why I got a show. I got a lot to say. We got a lot to talk about, a lot of opinions. I appreciate you guys for putting up with me. As we call them, the barnacles that stick around to the end of the show are the backbone of this community. But all right, let me throw this on your screen. This is Preston Stewart. This is what we didn't get to this morning in the early show. So just a couple minutes of this, and then we're going to dive into a little bit of a Jake Bro update and some Dennis Davidoff that are giving us some frontline updates about successful Ukrainian strikes. But this is more about the Russians' inability and the problems they're now facing. Having to figure out who they're going to continue throwing into this fight, where now the volunteers and the people on the outskirts and the people that they don't consider ethnically Russian have already been used up, have already been taken, they've already been expended. Now they're starting to, infiltrate some of these more, highfalutin societal areas. And it's not going to be a good thing when more and more of these people start speaking out against it. And does this lead to further conscription? Who knows? But this is Preston Stewart talking about Russia moves towards mass mobilization. So just a couple minutes of this, and then we'll dive on to some of the successful Ukrainian missions and attacks all over the front lines.
It's not that they're running out of people, far from it. It's that they're running out of people that they want to send to fight the war. The undesirables, the second-class citizens, the prisoners, and people that, to be blunt, the Kremlin just doesn't care all that much about. And as that group gets smaller and smaller, it becomes increasingly likely that we're going to see a forced mobilization in Russia where citizens, not veterans, not reservists, but your average Russian citizen is pressed into service, receives quick training, and is then sent.
So I was just going to say, so if you think the tactics are bad now and have been bad by some of these Russian units and individual Russian soldiers that we've seen on the battlefield and have been thrust into this fight, like, wait till they start getting through some of these, the cooks and the cleaners. And not saying there haven't been some of those that we've seen already, but, the people that have zero military experience or zero, how they release people from the prisons and shit. So none of that, none of that, the grit that the some of the people that we've seen thrust into this fight so far have, but just the average everyday Russian citizens, lack of training, not proper equipment, not giving the the proper weaponry to do the deed that they were asked to do. Like, it's going to start getting worse and worse, and they're going to go through more and more people, which is just going to expound their problem that they have of trying to fill the void of all the losses that they see every single month, and trying to, again, fill more of the voids than they're losing. So we talked about, I think, was it yesterday's show, maybe Sunday's show, we talked about this as far as the months in which Robert Brovdi has said that the unmanned system forces have been able to eliminate, and I think just broader, in more broader terms, the Ukrainian military has been able to eliminate more Russian soldiers than Russia has been able to replace in that single month. So this is, again, along the lines of that reporting and, kind of what it's leading to.
Front in Ukraine. That's the type of thing that has the ability to significantly change the war in a couple different ways. So let's get into it. Now, just a few hours ago, Ukrainian President Zelensky said they have new intelligence suggesting that a mobilization is coming this fall after the parliamentary elections. He said, quote, Putin's plan is not particularly complex. He wants to create the impression that Russians supposedly support the war, and all of the parties currently allowed to participate, one way or another, are against peace. Then, after the so-called elections, he plans a further rapid mobilization of several 100,000 Russians by the end of the year, plus another similar number for the following year. This is in addition to the recruitment that they are trying to achieve through contracts. That date has been floated through Russian channels for some time now. A lot of folks are looking at this fall as the likely date for mobilization. And I want to stress that Russia hasn't done this since 2022. So what you're seeing right now with Russian soldiers going to the front are volunteers. technically it is an all volunteer force, essentially. I mean, there's definitely still some folks left over from the 2022 mobilization, but the new recruits coming in.
Not only that, but there's some definite forced conscription, people that are being forced to raise their hand to volunteer going on behind the scenes, people being actively scooped up off the streets. We've talked about the prisons being released and the incentives given to those people. So, did they inevitably themselves raise their hand to volunteer? Yes. But was there a fucking Russian boot up some of their asses to force them to do so? Also, yes. So, but, we have seen a lot of them, kind of willing to throw themselves into this fight because of some, dismantled, distracted thought about the motherland and what they owe the motherland, and this like ridiculous view of the sacrifices that were shown during World War II and how they're meant to follow in their their family's footsteps and shit. So there has been a ton of these people that have rightfully volunteered themselves, but on the backside there's definitely some incentives, let's just say, being thrown in front of and behind some of these people that are actively being called volunteers for this mission.
Technically all raise their hand and sign on the dotted line. We'll get into some coercion that's taking place right now, where people are kind of voluntold in a sense, but technically Russia has avoided mobilizing the population. And this is something that even the Russian military has keyed in on in recent months, with the suggestion that this is coming. It's not just the one-off random mill blogger saying we think there might be this thing in the future. The Russian military is starting to use this to their advantage in recruiting, saying, hey, don't wait for mobilization. While all the official channels deny it, the military says, don't wait for that.
Have time to find a position in the rear before autumn. From Russia, from 4 million rubles at once, no debt, zeroing of debt up to 10 million rubles. You get to work in the rear, operators, drivers, and engineers. So again, this is like the active recruitment tactics there. But apparently you'll still be called a volunteer for this one, rear front security. I mean, try to make it seem like you'll have the best possible chance to survive, which, again, if any of these idiots have seen the life expectancy of the Russian soldiers on here, put it about 20 minutes. I don't think that any of this will kind of filter through as far as propaganda, but inevitably it will.
Get your bonus, get the specialty you want, and of course they always promise you're not going to be sent to an assault unit and actually pushed forward towards Ukrainian positions. Hit or miss on that last one. But either way, that's how many people in Russia view this as a reality here in the next few months. But as mentioned, it is technically an all-volunteer force inside of Russia right now. They have not done a forced conscription of the population in 4 years. However, in recent months, Russia has been turning more and more into rather coercive tactics to try to fill their numbers. The Financial Times said Russian army recruiters are resorting to increasingly coercive tactics, including snatching men off the street and tricking students into signing up, as Moscow's manpower advantage in Ukraine comes under strain. Recruiting enough men to sustain even the current slow pace of attack has become increasingly difficult. Although new soldiers receive bonuses of up to $56,000 for signing up, officials are under increased pressure to find recruits. Now, quick note on that, the one-to-one is never a perfect comparison, but the average Russian salary annual is $10,000 per year. So a $56,000 sign-on bonus, you're talking 5 to 6 times the annual salary.
Which is, again, is a huge incentive to anybody, especially outside the more affluent areas of Russia, the bigger cities, the more prominent areas of those cities. More specifically, we've talked about, how if, as soon as you get outside those prominent areas, the look, the lifestyle of the Russians changes dramatically, changes drastically. Whether it's, heating, cooling, plumbing, that type of stuff, how to get your clean drinking water, like all of those things change very drastically and very quickly as soon as you get out of the more affluent and richer areas of Russia there. But, these incentives, if you're going to get, 5 or 6 years total salary, kind of thrust in front of you at one time, it does a lot for these people that are living in poverty, you know what I mean, that have nothing to their names, that, probably live ruble by ruble, trying to pick up odds and ends, jobs that are kind of, just to pay the bills every single week, whatever it could, just odds and ends and jobs like, jobs and shit like that. So again, to have $56,000 thrown in front of you, or at least the promise of $56,000 thrown in front of you, clearly shows a willingness or, the ability for the Russian military, the Russian government, to incentivize its people to go into battle here against Ukraine, and knowing that in a lot of these cases, they'll never have to pay out that $56K, right? They'll go in there, they'll fucking die in 20 minutes. The body will probably never be recovered. It'll rot. They'll notify the next of kin. Maybe that's something that happened. They'll make up a story and they'll lie about what happened to the body, and then you'll just never, get whatever compensation the family deserves, and sure as fuck won't get the $56K that they were promised for, kind of thrusting themselves into this fight to begin with. But all right, let's see here, because like I said, I'm running out of time. Just want to go through a couple of these updates here. One of them is from Jake Bro. I think it's just a real quick update from one of his videos about a recent attack on Novorossiysk. Let me see if I can throw this on here. This says here from Jake Bro, Ukraine launched over 400 drones into Russia and bombarded the port of Novorossiysk. Port infrastructure was destroyed, and we are waiting on confirmation of damage to ships and potentially submarines. So what could be another very, very costly attack for the Russians, and a very, very effective attack by the Ukrainians. This, as we talked about, the 4-hour battle and the devastating effect on the Russian convoy south of Konstantinivka. Let's see if we can get into a little bit of this reporting from Jake. I'm going to throw on the playback speed just a touch, see if we can get through a little bit more of this.
So here's the big strike, the big attack from last night. Explosions rock Russia's Novorossiysk in occupied Crimea. Ukraine launched over 400 drones and some of these Peklo jet drones, and they were concentrated on the port city of Novorossiysk. Here's the video showing the air defense systems for Novorossiysk going off.
Jesus Christ. I wouldn't want to be fucking anywhere near there, right? I wouldn't trust the Russian air defenses and the people shooting those guns as far as I could throw the vodka bottle sitting next to them. Are you fucking shitting me? Like, I've seen many times where the Russian anti-defense, fire is going very level with, some of the houses in the areas. We've seen time and time again, earlier on when the Black Sea Fleet was getting attacked, that a lot of the ports were shooting into their own ships as well. So to be living on a hill in around one of these areas and have that much fucking, lead being, flying around in the air is just, I wouldn't want to be there. I could show you that.
The war is now real for these Russians. They were able to ignore it for years, but they can't ignore this anymore. Here's the firm status showing what was on fire in the city. And I think a lot of these drones were shot down, but Russia doesn't care if they shoot down drones and missiles over populated areas. So, real quick, this is the naval ports. We're going to talk about this in a second. There is reports that Ukraine successfully struck some of Russia's ships in the port, but we don't have any confirmation pictures or videos yet, but maybe we'll get that the next day. Also, this is a satellite image from this morning showing that Ukraine did successfully strike the holding pin for the submarines. If you remember going back last year, Ukraine snuck a drone boat and I think hit this submarine right here. There's now a barrier to prevent drones from sneaking in. But this is the high-resolution image. This is the low-resolution image. We can fast forward, and there's obviously 2 burn marks or whatever on the dock. And there's a submarine right here.
I wonder if you guys, I'm sure, will remember the earlier attacks Jake was just talking about. We went over those attacks here on the show. We showed you the footage of this exact port and the submarines. I think we even did a Sukakamis video that kind of highlighted the fuel trail in the water, and we were trying to figure out just how many of the submarines were actually hit. Like, I think if you'll recall that show, you'll recall this port as well. So actively being targeted once again here by the Ukrainians. So we'll see, like Jake said, if we could await, kind of the confirmation as far as what ships or submarines may or may not have been struck in this. But definitely another, successful act by the Ukrainians here.
If a drone successfully slammed into the ground next to the submarine, there could be damage to this submarine. So hopefully we can get some evidence of that in the next day or two.
All right, so that was about the attack on Novorossiysk, and then I have this last one here that'll probably take us to the end of the show, probably take us to the final bell here with Dennis Davidoff, getting us an update from a very important area of the front, one that we've been consistently talking about, especially more recently, as far as the Russians' attempt to try to flank the fortress belt cities of, Kupiansk, Sloviansk, Konstantinivka, and Lyman more up in the north. But yeah, let me see if I can throw this on your screen. And again, this is from Denis Davidov talking about biggest Ukrainian attack in 2026. Many villages liberated. So as we talked about in the last show, not just something that we need to see as far as the Ukrainians being able to stave off attacks in this area, but it is desperate for them to them to push back the Russians, to start taking back territory and not allowing the Russians to creep any further into position to utilize or to try to exploit the salient being seen there in the southern portion in and around Konstantinivka, for them to allow them to push into the rear of the fortress belt cities here. And this is another area a little bit more south, I believe, than Dobropilya, but still in that same, general vicinity as far as where the Russians are trying to attack from, both east and both northeast, again, to try to get up into Sloviansk, Kramatorsk, and in behind those fortress cities. So again, another very, very important area to be speaking about here. So good to see that the Ukrainians are not only kicking Russian ass, but also liberating Ukrainian villages along the way and pushing the Russians back. So let's take a look at this. Slava Ukraine, Heroyam Slava. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me, for supporting my passions both domestically and also abroad. And thank you guys so much for, supporting the Ukrainian military the way you do. Thank you so much for supporting the show the way you do. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. All right, let's jump into it here.
Hello, my friends. It seems like we have some of the great news. Just look at this. This is the Dnipropetrovsk region, also Donetsk Oblast, and the Ukraine went on a counterattack. We have the confirmation that the Ukraine managed to liberate multiple of the villages in the sector, which were located before in a gray zone. So not just some of the expert analysts says, no, we have the evidence of the presence of Ukrainian infantry in all of those villages, starting from very small.
Okay, before he zooms in, I can probably give you a good indication as to where we're talking about here before he gives a good zoom in. Let me see if I can go back just one more, play this here. Oh, why is he gotta mess around with me? I don't know, something must be going on with the internet. With the old internet here down
Hello,
here.
my friends. It seems like we
All
have...
right, this is the general area in which we're talking about. Dobropilya, I'm afraid to kind of zoom anymore, but Dobropilya being in this general vicinity up here, you can see is Sloviansk and Kramatorsk. You can see kind of that, the salient or the reverse salient, as it were, as far as the, Ukrainian-held territory with the Russians in the north kind of poking through, and then obviously here in the south kind of extending already a little past the fortress belt, but then trying to push up into the north area. But look as far as where he zooms into to see just how, in the general vicinity this is from what we were talking about yesterday.
Some of the great news.
So Dobropilya is just up in this area. You can see here's Pokrovsk, here's Mirrad, here's Rodinsky, Udachny. So some of the places that we've been speaking about heavily as far as south of Konstantinivka that the Russians are trying to infiltrate from. So I'll let him continue here.
Just look at this. This is the Dnipropetrovsk region, also Donetsk Oblast, and the Ukraine went on a counterattack. We have the confirmation that the Ukraine managed to liberate multiple of the villages in the sector, which were located before in a gray zone. So not just some of the expert analysts says, no, we have the evidence of the presence of Ukrainian infantry in all of those villages, starting from very small...
Again, and he's saying here, we not only have the, the reporting out there to suggest that the Ukrainians have liberated these specific villages, but also the visual confirmation. And as we continue to do and say, take it with a grain of salt. It could very well be in some of these circumstances, a lot of these flag planting operations that we've seen both militaries try to utilize. But I do believe, as he states here, as Denis states here, there are even more forces rather than just the 2 or 3, soldiers that are taking a picture with the flag have been reported in these areas. So, supply chains, different vehicles and attachments and brigades that typically go along with a larger force of people and not just a separate attachment or detachment, I should say, of 2 or 3 individuals trying to sneak behind enemy lines and at least make it seem like they've liberated these areas. So good to see that there's more reporting to suggest and more confirmation out there than just these random geographically located pictures of 2 or 3 soldiers holding flags.
Once in Ribne and finishing with this, what is the northern village here, Yalta. Well, actually, we have the good news, guys. From this place, it means that Ukraine has crossed the river of Mokry Yali.
So this is the river he's discussing here. If you can see my mouse on the screen. So this is the river that he's been talking about for quite some time now. If you've watched any of his videos, in which he's waiting to see and hoping to see the Ukrainians actually cross that river, which would mean that they're pushing the Russians back and obviously not going the opposite direction. And it looks like we have that confirmation now that the Ukrainians have made that push across that river and have at least liberated these villages that you're seeing here: Yalta, Zerka, Pedubne in this one, and I think there was a few that they held. But I'll let him continue on with some of the reporting from this.
And the battle for Kemar is going to happen kind of soon. Also, the village of Myrna was liberated. So we have multiple of the videos with the Ukrainian flags, which are put in some of the partially destroyed buildings or ruined buildings. So Osin's confirmed.
So again, that would give me, cause for concern, right? If I was just hearing this portion of it and it was just kind of these video images that was, kind of where we were relying upon to say that they've taken over this territory, I would be skeptical. Because again, I've seen the inefficiencies, I've seen the ineffectiveness, let's just say, of these flag waving, operations, and how it could go very poorly for the people involved in those operations, and how it leads to confusion, right? It leads to, where are the military, where are our soldiers actually holding territory? Where are they safe? Where are they not safe? Where's the kicking off point? Where can we say we hold? Where can we say they hold? So it throws a lot of confusion into play, but I believe he goes on here to explain that there are more forces that have been seen in the area and confirmed in the area, which go to, again, corroborate this information in the video you're now seeing on your screen.
The presence of the soldiers of Ukrainian, multiple of the brigades, regiments in all of those villages. And this is the map from Clement Molin, and he also has his own perspective on the events. Well, this attack happened not just for one day or something. It was the gradual, long-lasting operation with definitely some of the certain success. But I don't want to over-exaggerate this event, because basically Ukraine did what Russians usually do, yeah? Ukrainian forces went into attacks with the small infiltration groups, and they showed the flags. Yeah, Ukrainians did it with some time, without those huge losses, but still the idea is kind of similar. So I would put all of this area still into the gray zone, honestly, my friends, even though we have those updates from the Nitro maps, from Deep State even, which put it into the blue.
So even Dennis here showing some skepticism towards this whole thing, and the way that the flag operations, the flag planting operations, have made people skeptical, right? They've made people, so it's like, okay, just because we see the flag and we see a couple people in that area does not mean necessarily that enough of the military has infiltrated that area or occupies that area to call it its own. So he's saying that if it was up to him, he'd probably still now, without further confirmation, consider this in the gray zone, which means it's being contended. Neither military, neither army, neither side actually controls that position, but it's being contended, right? Contested. So he'd basically say if it was up to him, that he'd consider it still in the gray zone, which I can't blame him for saying. I can't blame him for saying. The fact that there's been reports of other brigades in the area does not necessarily mean they are in these villages to the extent that we need them to be at to hold that position, to continue to hold that position, or to utilize that position as a jumping off point. So you need to really be stable or trusting in your ability to control an area, to bring multiple resources into that area, to convene multiple units, or to use that as a jumping off point. Like, you need to be really secure in the surroundings and that nobody's going to infiltrate that area. So I just don't think he's at that level yet to say definitively that these areas have been taken by a substantial enough Ukrainian force to consider them held, right? To consider them, safely and securely Ukrainian held territory. So again, a little bit of the confusion that has come in from these flag waving operations, a little bit of the fog of war that we continuously talk about, as far as, both sides having the willingness to utilize propaganda to their advantage. So we got to kind of try to read between the lines, and I have no problems kind of taking it slowly as far as confirming this or talking about successes in this way or that way. operational security in mind, and not wanting to get ahead of ourselves, not wanting to do any false reporting. I totally am, right behind Dennis as far as that is concerned. But unfortunately, we have run out of time for our night show. I thank you guys so much for making this a possibility. It has been one of the more frustrating and one of the poorer financial decisions that I've ever made in my life to stop my plumbing career and to dive into politics head first, to start my own podcast, to do this on a daily basis and to try to make a living for this, from this, I should say. But I do get so much so much of a sense of appreciation, and I have so much gratitude for the community that we've built and the people that have supported this channel from day one. I am under no illusions about the reach that we have or the amount of people that watch this fucking broadcast. I'm not going to pretend like there's, thousands or tens of thousands that watch, which is why I'm so, again, appreciative of the people that are in this chat night after night, day after day, people that are supporting every single show, the same names that I see on the Venmo, the same names that I see in the Super Chat. So it means the world to me that I have even this, group and this amount of people watching. So again, from the bottom of my heart and from everybody here, my family to yours, thank you guys so much for making this a possibility. And hopefully one of these days we'll see that kind of exponential growth that we've been awaiting, that we're kind of, I don't know, I think we're deserving of, but again, I'm biased in that regard. So if you think we are, share the show, clip some of these, clip some of the segments of the show. Feel free. Again, I will not come after you for clipping the show and sharing it out, or a funny moment or anything like that. Anything that you could, you could utilize to help boost the profile of the show, I would be very, very, very appreciative of. So let's get into thanking some of the Venmo people, as there typically are a few people to utilize the Venmo up in the corner there to send in a buck or two to the show to make sure that we can keep the lights on and stuff. Let's see who was nice enough today. Thank you, Allison. I see you in there already. Much appreciated to Allison for sending over the 5 on Venmo with the let's fucking go. We got a lobster and a hot, and I can't thank you for all of that. Thank you so much to Nancy as well. Much appreciated. Nancy says, glad you're home. No, we're glad you're home. We're glad that you're home. We're glad you're in the chat. So much appreciated, Nance. Thank you, Allison. Thank you to Nina C. as well for the $2 contribution from Namaste on YouTube every day. Every news day is more ridiculous than the last. Can we just make politics boring again? Wouldn't that be the day? Wouldn't that be the day where we could even turn some of these channels into, like, things that we're passionate about outside of these areas? You know what I mean? But, hopefully one day. And then Brian H. from earlier today, thank you so much for the $20 contribution. He said he screwed up yesterday and sent 20 to hell, but then realized he could use a little help himself. So there's today's couch cushion treasure for you to help with the postage. Slava Ukraine. Heroyam Slava. Right back at you, Brian. Thank you so much. And everybody else that makes this show go. Thank you, John D. Thank you, John M. Much appreciated. Thank you to Damon. Thank you to Bry again for everything that you do. Jenny Faye and Corey, Tom and Victoria, Roger and Karen, Allison again. Unbelievable community that we've built here for such a, for such a small channel. I feel like we have one hell of a community that we've built. So thank you guys so much for being a part of that. Let's see if we can thank some people over here on the YouTube side of things. Thank you, Bicycle Mike, starting it off in the right direction today. Becoming a member for 2 years. Let's fucking go. Oh, Laurie, you can't sneak that in on me. You can't be sneaking that in on me and think I'm not going to see. Thank you to Laurie D for the lobster love and the $15 contribution that you just sent in on Venmo. Trying to be sly, trying to be slick, thinking I wouldn't see it. I don't miss anything. I don't miss anything. So thank you guys so much for anybody, again, sneaking in that last minute Venmo. You can utilize the QR code right here in the corner. All you do is take a picture with your cell phone. Should send you right to the Venmo. You hit that $1 sign, send it on over, and then we get the support. It's fantastic the way that happens. And thank you guys so much for everything that you guys do. Thank you to Bicycle Mike. Again, congratulations on 2 years, my brother. Can't thank you enough for everything you've done for this community, all the love, support, all the kind words, and everything else. So great to see you here. Much appreciated. Hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful rest of your night. Thank you to Leave Me Alone, Mike. Love the name, again, for becoming a new YouTube member. Always great seeing new people in the chat becoming new YouTube members. It means we're doing something right, at least. So Leave Me Alone. Thank you so much. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your night as well. Thank you to Peggy Peg. Let's go, Peggy Peg, being here for a year. You fucking saint, you. A whole year. Can't thank you enough. Thank you so much, Peggy Peg, for everything you've done for this community. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your night. Same thing with Wes. 28 months. Let's go, brother. I've got a really good one. Mikey Pillow. Oh, for spokesperson. Again, he's got the opportunity. Let's just say he's got the availability to do so. But I don't know how well that would go over for this administration. I really don't. Comical would be comical and would have a ton to call out every single show. So it would be good for live streamers and podcasters like myself, but not too advantageous for this administration, I don't think. But much appreciated for being here for 28 months, Wes. Thank you so much. Thank you to Jim. Been here for 27 months. Let's go. The race continues between the, for the top spot as far as members and months. Let's go here. He says, new prop sec will be unknown. New prop sec. What's prop sec? Oh, press secretary? Is that what you're talking about? New press secretary will be unknown. So somebody obscure is what you're saying? That's what I'm thinking. Somebody, I mean, it would kind of have to be, right? I don't know. It's a weird situation. It really is a weird situation because all the prominent people that you would readily think first, offhand, like, come to the top of your mind first off the page. I don't think that they necessarily fit into that position or would do it even close to as good as Karoline Leavitt was able to gaslight and lie to the American people. So, bringing in an unknown might be a way around all of the, the speculation. But anyway, I appreciate you, Jim. Thank you for being a member for so long. Thank you for being a huge, and valued member of this community. Thank you to Frank as well for gifting a Boston Brian membership like you can do as well. You can also sign up for a YouTube membership for $2.99 for the month. The best bang for your buck you're going to get on fucking social media by a long stretch, right underneath me here or at the Patreon, patreon.com/Boston Brian. As you can see in the ticker. See this ticker? Huh? Look how professional I am. Huh? It's professional. That's professional. But no, thank you, Frank. I very much appreciate it for the gifted membership. Thank you, Independent, for being here for 27 months. Let's fucking go. Thank you, Brian. Slava Ukraine. Heroyam Slava. Right back at you, Independent. Once again, thank you for everything. Thank you to DPD for the $20 contribution. I must get myself up to speed on what's going on with Walmart so I can be, as educated as you are on this matter. But thank you so much, DPD, for everything. For all time that you've done for this show. Can't thank you enough. Thank you, David Weiss, for the 666, just because. Right back at you, brother. Thank you so much. Jordan, there's a name I haven't seen in a little bit. How are you, brother? I could be just missing out. I could be mistaken, but I feel like it's been, a couple shows since I've seen your name grace us with your presence. But g'day, mate. Much appreciated. Appreciate you from Sydney. But let's see here. What's the time? What's the time change? What time is it in Sydney? Is it morning already? Let's see here. Can I check on my computer? Would it tell me? No, probably not. I'll probably fuck it up if I try. But thank you for watching, whatever time it is in Sydney, Australia, my friend. Thank you for the $20 contribution. Much appreciated. Always great seeing you in the chat. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, night, afternoon, morning, evening. Not sure, but hope it's a good one. Darkly yours, thank you for becoming a new YouTube member. Thank you so much for everybody signing up for the memberships and obviously the Patreon and getting merch. It really means the world to see you guys supporting this show like this. Same thing with Vincent. Thank you, Vincent, for being here for 22 months. Thank you for tolerating me for almost a year. I mean, again, I am so appreciative for you guys and your time and the contributions that you make for this channel. So no, it's you guys that tolerate me that I am so thankful for. You guys are the fucking best thing since sliced bread. So no need to tolerate you guys at all. I need you. That's just period, point blank. I need you. So thank you so much, Vincent. Hope you have a wonderful night. Thank you to Dame Dog for the 10 jewels. Much appreciated to you, my brother. Always great seeing you in the Zoom chats. One of the long-standing, long-lasting Patreon members there, Dame Dog. Much appreciated. W's to you in the chat. Thank you to Mr. Android again. So much that we can do. Mainly, we need to vote. Amen, Wes? Amen. I do very much appreciate that sentiment. You need to get the fuck out of your seats and into those streets and into those polling lines, or again, just utilize the early voting, the mail-in voting, but make sure you guys know the different laws, okay? Make sure you know the law changes, the rule changes, whether it's in your town, your state, your county, whatever it may be. Please make sure you guys know the rules and regulations coming up for midterms, in your different area, because there's been some switches, there's been some changes, there's been some USPS changes as well. So just make sure you do everything. You cross your I's and dot your T's. You know what I mean? Make sure you get all that shit in order. But thank you so much, Wes, for everything that you do for this channel as well. Thank you to Brian H. Slava Ukraine. I had a tooth removed, man. Did that put a damper on the day? Hope all is well with all. If not, good thoughts to you. Much appreciated, Braga. I hope you're feeling better. I can't even spend too much time thinking about the dentist at this point, or I'll break into a fucking cold sweat. But I hope you recover quickly. I hope they gave you some good drugs to dampen or lessen the pain, let's just say. And thank you so much for, sticking it out and being here, typing away, looking at the computer, where I know that's kind of probably playing tricks with your head with the tooth pain and stuff like that. So, Braga, thank you so much. Thank you to Jimmy Two Soups as well. I got $2 on Melania's for Melania for press secretary. Be best. Now, wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be fucking something? Melania coming in, not only the first lady, but also now the White House press secretary. I don't give a fuck. That's how she'd answer every question. I do not give a fuck. Donald, I do not give a fuck about Donald. I do not give a fuck about these questions that you ask me. I do not give a fuck. Do you want to take a picture of me topless? Huh? Anybody picture me topless? That's kind of how every day would go if Melania was press secretary. But Jimmy Two Soups, thank you so much. Rocks, let's fucking go. Appreciate you. Member for 29 months and one of the best mods on social media. Love y'all. Mom's home and I'm busy as fuck. Sorry I'm MIA. All good. All good. Lots going on in the personal life. That's why we've built a huge coalition of the most fantastic mods, just in case somebody's out. If somebody's, got a thing going on, that's fine. Much love to you. Much love to Mom. Take all the time that you need. Make sure that she's comfortable. Make sure all the foosball is foosballing. Right? So we're right there with you. Let us know if you need anything, and you take all the time you need, Rocks. We appreciate you, and we'll be right here for you. Thank you so much to John McDonough for the $5 you sent over. If we win both houses in midterms, will it help Ukraine? If we win both, it definitely won't hurt right off the bat. It can't hurt, right? If we win both houses in midterms, will it help Ukraine? I think absolutely. I mean, I don't think that there's we have that $400 million that's seemingly still sitting around that the Pentagon and Pete Hegseth are still sending. We can continue talking about, revamping the aid and equipment being sent over there where it's not going through this roundabout fucking got to send it to NATO. NATO's got to sell it to them type of bullshit role that they've been setting up now. So absolutely. I think abso-fucking-goddamn-lutely. It would also, put a lot more pressure, I believe, on the Republicans in general to do more for not only our allies, but against our enemies, holding people accountable for actions in, kind of allowing our enemies to expand their fucking devious intents. Like, I think all of this would be, kind of a help. But I just, my thoughts go right to interceptors, right? Because of the problems Ukraine's facing right now. And I don't know. I just don't know if there's anything really that can ramp that up quickly enough. You know what I mean? With the United States now, if the war ends in Iran, Mike, if we could get in there, take both houses and end this, if it hasn't already come to some, really sad and disastrous ending already, like if we could get that over with, then the stockpiles, right? The interceptors, the level of interceptors becomes less of an issue for us, which obviously, hopefully would open up the door to sending more to Ukraine. So that's another aspect in which it could be beneficial. Multiple ways in which it would absolutely be beneficial to Ukraine. How much and like how effective it would be remains to be seen, and I think could be debated. But I think absolutely is the answer to that. But great question, John. Much appreciated for asking that. And then last but certainly not least, is Abby. Thank you so much for becoming a new YouTube member. I feel like you've been a member for 10 years now already in a very good way. But thank you so much for everything that you do. Very much appreciated. All the kind words, all the contributions. And that goes for everybody there in the chat. So thank you guys so much. I will see you guys. What's today? I don't know what today is anymore. Today's Wednesday. And I will see you guys absolutely for tomorrow's show on Thursday, 2 p.m. here on the East Coast, 11 a.m. on the West Coast, and somewhere in between, or maybe not in between, depending on where you live. But thanks. If you could hit that like button on the way out, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell, let you know when I go live, when I put out videos, when I put out shorts, which I regularly try to do from these live streams. So, if you're not much of a live stream person and watching 2+ hours of a show and you like to see it kind of cut down into segments, then please check out the shorts. Like I said, a lot of those are cut down from segments from the show. I obviously try to put out, if I can and when I can, my own, my own content as well, maybe separate from the live stream. So check out all of the social media apps that I'm on, whether it be Blue Sky or Instagram, Threads, all of those. And I think I even have a pretty cool, this one that I could throw up there. which lets you know all the different sites that you can find me at. So obviously YouTube, Instagram, Twitch, Blue Sky, Facebook, TikTok, Threads. You can do Substack as well. So find me in all of those. Make sure you're following or subscribed or friends or whatever you got to do on either one of those platforms. That would be fantastic if you could follow along with that as well. Just kind of, trying to boost the vision. Trying to boost the vision that we have here at Blunt Politics, gain put together the biggest community as possible so we can get the most of our opinions out there and get people to notice. That's another thing. It's not just enough to sit here and yell into the void, but you want people to react. You want people to notice. You want people to, to kind of, respect what you're able to do here on these platforms to a large extent. So thank you guys so much. And again, make sure you head over to Blunt Politics Shop over at bostonbrian.com. You'll see it say Blunt Politics Shop. You click on that. It'll take you right goddamn to it. And you can get hats, sweatshirts, mugs, stickers, all of the different things. You can get, Ukraine merch. You can get T-shirts like these T-shirts as well, which is fan-fucking-tastic, I believe. If you're looking for great designs for short money, I don't think you can find any better than at Blunt Politics merch shop. So thank you guys so much for what you're able to do for this community, how much you've supported this community, all of the great things that you've done for us. So much appreciated. Stay loud, stay proud, stay informed, and stay in the goddamn fight. Make sure you're staying aggressive, though. You know what I mean? That's the important part. Stay loud, stay proud, stay aggressive, and stay in the fight. But keep your head on a swivel. Make sure you're staying safe out there because we're just not pissed off enough in this country. Much appreciated. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the Thursday show. My name's Boston Brian. This is the Blunt Politics Podcast, and I do appreciate trying to bring you guys the news, my opinions, the facts every single day, and all the appreciation you guys show in return. So, mods, salute. Thank you guys, as always. Thank you to the best chat on social media, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for the Thursday show. Hit that like button on the way out. Thanks, guys. Jay, what's up, brother? Good to see you, my friend. Hope you're doing well. Really good to see you.
Вітаю, Бостон Брайан. Мій позивний танцор. Я представник 72-ї бригади. Дякую тобі і твоїм підписникам за цей донат, за цю чудову машину, яка буде нас возити усіх на позиції, захищати Україну і наближати перемогу. Разом усі до перемоги. Дякую.
Well, Wes, that's just bullshit. I mean, look at where we are right now. Into 5 years of a 72-hour operation. I think that's a lot to do with the billions of dollars that Biden had sent to Ukraine. Even though I think and I know we could have done a lot more, but I think that's a huge reason that Ukraine is in the position that they're in right now.
just getting acclimated. You know what that means, acclimated?
Вітаю, Бостон Брайан. Мій позивний танцор. Я представник 72-ї бригади. Дякую тобі і твоїм підписникам за цей донат, за цю чудову машину, яка буде нас возити усіх на позиції, захищати Україну і наближати перемогу. Разом усі до перемоги. Дякую.
I'm standing up here bashing the living shit out of Nazis.
No, get those lights off! Off! Turn them off. They're too bright. Turn them off.
Or go fuck yourself.
Man, I ain't falling for no banana in my tailpipe.
It feels so lovely to be here tonight. What a beautiful night. Give yourself a round of applause. It's so lovely. Everyone's so lovely.
Where you going? Nowhere.
Taking him back to Nevada where he's wanted for banging horses.
He says, wrecked him, damn near killed him. I'm just dandy. I got a bowl of chocolate pudding in my underpants.
Call them dummies. Big, massive dummies.
I say mud. I said crud. You fall into some crud or something?
Wrong.
The FBI and now you're running for president. Seriously, how do you lie to the FBI and now you're running for president?
Here's a thought. Grow a sack, fill it with some balls.
Вітаю, Бостон Брайан. Мій позивний танцор. Я представник 72-ї бригади. Дякую тобі і твоїм підписникам за цей донат, за цю чудову машину, яка буде нас возити усіх на позиції, захищати Україну і наближати перемогу. Разом усі до перемоги. Дякую.
Kidney has a very special place in the heart. It's an incredible thing to officially name the undisputed. When did this come out? Somebody said, "Is that a Trump statement or is that real?"
Brian, you're drunk. You're drunk.
For the rest of my life, I have the curse that I have